The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for February 8th, 2022 is now in session. First on the agenda is Councilmember Hayward would lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas.
Bow your head, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to make it safely here without hurt, harm, or danger. Thank you for all of your grace and mercy in keeping us safe throughout the week. Lord, as we come together to do the city business, I ask that you give us guidance the way we're supposed to make decisions, and understand that some decisions some may not be happy with, but they will understand that we are using the data and the research that we have to make those decisions, and that we're using discernment in those decision-making issues. I ask that you continue to bless our city staff and our first responders and keep watch over them as they continue to do their jobs. I ask that you continue to watch over us and guide us and lead us safely home and back again in 2 weeks. These blessings in your Son's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Councilmember Hayward. All right, we have a presentation. We have the a proclamation to be read today. If I can have the Rodeo Committee, please join me up here.
You want this facing for you?
It's not necessary. This is the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo Committee. Thank you for joining us. And we also have some guests here from the 4-H Club, right? So, this is a City of Schertz proclamation, the official rodeo season, and let's rodeo San Antonio. Whereas the 73rd annual San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, one of the largest and most prestigious events in the Alamo City, will be held on February 10th through February 27th, 2022 at the Freeman Coliseum. Whereas the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo is a volunteer organization that emphasizes agriculture and education to develop the youth of Texas. Whereas since its inception, over $232 million has been committed by the organization to the youth of Texas in the form of scholarships, grants, endowments, auctions, calf scramble programs, and show premiums, with $12.2 million committed in 2022. Whereas the lifeblood of the organization is the over 6,000 dedicated volunteers and its corporate partners and patrons who understand and support the event and mission. Whereas in 2020, over 1.5 million visitors enjoyed exciting activities such as world-class entertainment, a carnival, education exhibits, family activities, attractions, livestock, horse shows and sales, mutton base busting, that's one of my favorites, calf scrambles, extreme bulls, and shopping for the entire family to enjoy. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City of Schertz, through its mayor, Ralph Gutierrez, and the City Council, hereby recognize and proclaim February 10th through the 27th, 2022, as the official rodeo season, and February 10th, 2022, as official dress Western San Antonio Day, and call upon all citizens of the City of Schertz to join us in supporting the activities and mission of the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. Thank you for coming. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for having us. Yes, we are the ambassadors from the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. I want to thank Brenda Dennis for making this possible. She and I have been communicating about this for quite some time. I want to give you just a brief synopsis of what this committee has been doing in Guadalupe County. We have been visiting 4-H clubs in the county, and I want to name them to you: Santa Clara, Clemens, Navarro, Kingsbury, New Berlin, the Discovery 4-H. We attended their meeting also. When we attend the meetings, we encourage the kids to apply for a scholarship. $12.2 million for the kids. We encourage them to start documenting what you do. If you cleaned out Grandpa's barn, make note of it, because the stock show is looking for community-minded people. The more pages, the better. Also, in Guadalupe County, you may have seen us at the Christmas parade here in Schertz and also Seguin, the 4th of July parade here, the Guadalupe County Fair parade, and the Sausage Fest in Marion. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the Guadalupe County Youth Show at the Country Church in Marion. We made some bids on some of the animals that were being showed. And yes, when we went to the Discovery meeting, I just invited them to come to the proclamation. The date had already been set, and she said, yes, we can do this. So here they are. We had fun at your meeting. We talked with the kids, and we met some great people. So remember, February 10th through the 27th, we will see you at the stock show.
We have photo op.
Thank you. This is why it's done for the kids, and we appreciate you coming and joining us today. We missed you last year. We didn't have the rodeo last year, and it was a big impact on our city, and especially going to these events. I love that mutton. I just knew it was a mutton run, and I love that. I mean, it's such a joy. Yes, that is great. Thank you. All right, we'll continue with the city events and announcements. Announcements of upcoming events. Mr. James?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to let everybody know, as the rodeo comes through, this Friday, February 11th, the Chuck Wagon Breakfast is happening as part of Frost Bank, 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. They've invited council to that. Also, council that same day has their strategic planning retreat. That starts at 9 a.m. That's in the community room at Fire Station number 3, 11917 Lower Seguin Road. Next Tuesday, we won't be here, but we will be at the Council on the Grow with the meet and greet from 6 to 6:30 and the meeting at 6:30 p.m. That's at JP2 Catholic High School, 6720 FM 482. Friday, February 18th is the Mother-Son Dance, 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, February 19th is the Daddy-Daughter Dance, 4 to 6 p.m. or 7 to 9 p.m. Those are in the Civic Center. You can certainly check the city's website under the Parks and Rec Department to see if there's still room to register for that. And then we'll be back here on February 22nd for our next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. James. Announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have one tonight. I'd like to recognize our emergency management team for the great work they did during the winter storm last week. Summer Hall and her team did a fantastic job responding to that and making sure that everything was taken care of for our community and for our residents. We also took the opportunity to run a fully open emergency operations center, and that was one of the few times we've been able to do that. And so we had a full-up staff in there, and it was a great opportunity for us to learn more about how that process works and the functions of each of the positions. And so I think our city will be better prepared for emergencies in the future when we get a worse emergency, a hurricane or something like that. So again, thanks to Summer Hall and her team for a great job.
Okay. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I also like to take the opportunity to thank our city staff. The planning, the preparing, the coordinating, and responding to the this winter storm that we had this past weekend. Although it was mild, just everything that was involved in preparing for this. And not only that, we also had a meeting after to go over some points of to coordinate for future events. So thank you to our city staff. Really do appreciate it. All right, next we have the hearing the residents. This time is set aside for anyone who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. Now, there is also several public hearings, and I just want to make it a point that you have options. You can speak during the hearing the residents. You can also speak during the public hearing, or you can speak at both. It's entirely your option. If you choose to speak during the hearing of residents, you also are allowed during the public hearing. All right, Mayor Pro Temp Scagliola, please call first speaker.
We'll start with the hearing residents. Discovery 4-H of Schertz.
Let us get organized. We apologize. What do I do? Open around. Do I go?
Good evening.
Eat the mic.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here. My name is Autumn Hagan, and I am the president of the Discovery 4-H Club of Schertz. We practice at 9120 East FM 1518 North in Schertz. In 4-H, we learn about leadership, citizenship, responsibility, and animal care. Most of our 4-Hers participate in the Dog Project, where we train our own dogs in all aspects of dog shows. Our favorite is agility. We were given an opportunity by the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo to participate in the first Stock Show Dog Agility Show, featured Sunday, February 20th from 8 a.m. to noon. Please come and support this new event. Thank you for your time.
Let's rodeo sound. Ready? 1, 2, let's rodeo shirts. 1, 2, 3. Let's rodeo shirts!
Next on the list is Mr. Dana Eldridge.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive, Schertz, Texas, 78108. I've been coming to quite a few of these. Listened to the budget. You guys, I want to say, have kept this city in a very good standing, fiscally wise, which the majority of the people in this city should be very thankful for. My concern tonight is, and it's not the first time I've made a comment like this, is the last 2 meetings, we've had closed-door sessions and came back and we provided raises, monetary raises to employees for the city. Last week, we had a whole stack of people come walking through here that we hired again, partly because we can't seem to keep people employed in our city. I've been told by a councilman and a senior staff member for the city that the main reason is we can't afford to pay them what the other cities pay. We can't afford to pay them what the other cities pay. And yet, in the last 2 weeks, we've given pay raises to 2 senior people in our city. We're fiscally sound. We need to stay in competition with these other cities. We can't keep paying to train the people, provide for them that way, and then 2 months later we lose them because somebody's offered them more money. We need to start being a little more concerned about our city and what we can use rather than being the training ground for all these other cities. Just some food for thought.
Next on the list, I can't read the last name. It looks like Victoria, well, Campos. And if you'd like to speak now or wait till the agenda item comes up, your choice. Okay, as I said, it's your choice. All righty. Next on the list would be Adrian Perez.
Hi, I'm Adrian Perez. I live at 12015 Rock Route, Schertz, Texas, 78154. I intend to speak twice. I'm here to object to ordinance number 22S08. It's the proposal to amend the comprehensive land use plan on 1518. A few weeks ago, NRP had a presentation in front of the council, and at that presentation, they provided a PowerPoint which the council reviewed. And in reviewing that, I think, and there's really no other way to say this, but I think that NRP was really disingenuous in what they are proposing. And I understand what's before the committee right now is only a proposal to amend the land use agreement and not per se to approve what NRP is intended to do. But I think that this first step would make NRP's ultimate plan something very easy. Unfortunately, I don't want to use the rubber stamp, but I think that it would be it wouldn't be much of an obstacle for them to come back with zoning, et cetera. What I'm looking at specifically, the NRP provided the council a PowerPoint, and one of the pages looks something like this. And NRP said, well, we need a place for the Schertz police officers to live. We need a place for the SCUSISD teachers to live, et cetera. But the issue is, in reviewing the data, it looks like these people, in almost all circumstances, would make too much money to qualify to live at NRP's proposed apartments. NRP, by their own presentation, they're telling the council that they are looking at an average of 60% AMI. They base the AMI off a 4-person household at just over $80,000. So, for example, you take a single unmarried Schertz police officer starting at $46,000 and change, and he would not qualify as a single person for this household at all. He would make too much money. Same thing for a teacher, same thing for the paralegal, same thing for a nurse at the children's hospital. As a matter of fact, I find it a little bit ironic, a nurse wouldn't qualify at all on any of the categories in this chart. They would make too much money, even if they were 4 people total living in that household. Kicking around the numbers, it looks like, respectfully, the only people that would qualify for this housing,
If you could wrap up your conclusion
the
here.
only people that would qualify for this housing would be families with only one parent working and lots of kids. And I'll speak more on after the meeting.
Thank you.
And that's all that's on the list.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, we have one more?
Okay, yeah, Rose Hendricks.
Hi, Council and City Manager and City Man. Rose Hendricks, 3017 Turquoise, Schertz, Texas, 78154. And I would like to address y'all, please. I'm talking on the full expansion of South Schertz. Many of y'all know I've been coming up here since 2012. Even like with, now we have TxDOT involved on fixing 1518. I was at the meetings 2013. So very familiar with everything that was written in PPDs, PUDs, everything that was planned, everything that was promised. I have big concerns because there's big items that have not been addressed. One is flooding. Okay, we have the top soil flooding, we have the retention ponds, they are not working. This last year, the rains just in Crossvine, both retention ponds overfilled. Y'all are familiar where the poor little girl and the woman that lost their lives right outside South Schertz, okay? Last week, that was just frozen rain. New Berlin and Woman Hollering Creek was closed. We are building on floodplain. Our water is running off. We're causing damage to other people. We need to address the flood, please. That's one thing I would like. Next, on our roadways. Okay, we're doing the 1518 expansion. Y'all know we only have 4 outlets. How many TIAs have been done on 78, 1604, and 10? What we're proposing, how much expansion we are going to have. How many TIAs have been done outside of just 1518? So we live across from an Air Force base. Heaven forbid if we had an emergency, we had to get out. You have to understand those roads, 78's backlogged, 10's backlogged, 1604's backlogged. We would be stuck. Please consider having current TIAs with our outlets. That's one other thing. Lower Seguin Road, we were also promised turn lanes. I know they're doing the expansion on 1518. Just last week, we had a wreck with an overturn where they had to close Lower Seguin Road. The people that are coming into the neighborhood are not familiar with the curve, they're not familiar with the speed zones. Whatever it is, we need turn lanes there. Our EMS comes out on Lower Seguin Road. There is possibilities there. The ambulance response time, here we go. We were promised, thank you for our firehouse, number 3, we love it, thank y'all. Ambulance response time, we don't have an ambulance there. Unfortunately, I had an accident where I was laying on the road, and thank God for good neighbors, they were there to help me. But the thing was, the ambulance broke down on the way to the hospital. And last but not least, the truck traffic. I followed a truck from just today, Lower Seguin Road, all the way to 35. We're being used as cut through. Aztec Way, we need to block that. There's going to be a wreck with our buses. Those buses go there. So
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
out of here. Y'all take care of the rest. Y'all know
Thank you.
what we've been asking for. Just consider that. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda items. These items are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on February 1st, 2022. Item number 2, ordinance number 22M06, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending Chapter 21, Community Development of the City of Schertz Code of Ordinances by adding Article 3, Enterprise Zones, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. This is our final reading. Item number 3, resolution number 22R15. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing a project and expenditures of the Schertz Economic Development Corporation, Texas, in the form of an Economic Development Performance Agreement between the City of Schertz Economic Development Corporation and Cisco Corporation, aka Cisco USA 1 Incorporated, and other matters in connection therewith. Council, do any of these need to be removed for separate action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Whitaker and second by Councilmember Dalla. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to our public hearings. Item number 4, resolution number 22R16, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, nominating an enterprise zone project under the provisions established in the state law and Chapter 21 of the Code of the City of Schertz, providing a servability clause and providing an effective date. Mr. Perez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Adrian Bettis, Director of the Schertz Economic Development Corporation. The summary of the action, as the Mayor mentioned, this is a public hearing and consideration for Resolution 22R16. This would nominate Cisco USA 1 Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Cisco Corporation, for a state enterprise project designation through the Texas Enterprise Zone program. To provide a little program background on the Texas Enterprise Zone program, this is a state sales and use tax refund program for qualifying costs provided to companies relocating or expanding in Texas. New or existing companies can secure a state tax sales refund by meeting capital investment thresholds, creating and or retaining jobs that employ a percentage of enterprise zone residents or veterans. And companies must secure the nomination of a local company to submit an EZP application. We have projects scored by the state of Texas versus other projects throughout the state. This is done on a quarterly basis for these designations, so it is a competitive process. Project background is we are working with Cisco, who you know is a global leader in selling, marketing, and distributing food goods. Back in 2012, they established Cisco Central Texas here in Schertz. They currently have about 450 team members, and their operation has resulted in over $100 million in real and personal property investment in the community. They also participate in annual Job Shadow Day and have been a model corporate citizen. The expansion project itself is a little over 100,000 square feet of an expansion of their existing facility, resulting in a total of maybe $12.6 million in total investment. Their current jobs, I mentioned, is 450. They're planning on expanding by 40 jobs, bringing the grand total to 490 jobs at an average salary of $70,000 per year. Community benefit for this action is to help secure the additional jobs and investment and to maintain a strong relationship with a local Fortune 500 company. Companies continue to respond to the post-COVID market with consolidation and expansion activity, and so these types of partnerships lower expansion costs and really help our community remain competitive for future investment. Fiscal impact, essentially there is no direct fiscal impact to the sales tax, as the sales tax rebate is paid from a portion collected by the state of Texas. So this is not City of Schertz sales tax dollars that are being rebated. This nomination, however, would use one of 6 nominations that we are granted per biennium. Once again, staff recommends approval of this resolution, 22R16, to nominate Cisco USA 1, Inc. for a state enterprise project designation through the Texas Enterprise Zone program.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Okay, this is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject? Anyone? Going once? Going twice? Public hearing is closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Dalla.
I'd just say I'd agree with Adrian's comments there about Cisco. They've been a great corporate citizen. They've got good, high-paying jobs, the kind of things that we're looking for. Appreciate the investment and commitment they've made to our community. I'm happy to support them on this.
Thanks, sir.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I tend to echo those comments. Cisco's been a good partner to the city for a while now.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
And we agree, and it's also nice to have a corporation that meets the requirements that we can put them in for, or nominate them for.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, council, is there a motion to approve resolution number 22R16?
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilmember Hayward, second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dalla. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to our next public hearing, ordinance number 22S07. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 44 acres of future land use map from the mixed-use neighborhood land use designation to single-family residential land use designation, located approximately 3,650 feet east of the intersection of Schaefer Road and FM 1518. Also known as Bexar County, property identification numbers 309-807, 309-814, and 309-837, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas, first reading. Ms. Harrison, floor is yours.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Dr. Brown. My name is Megan Harrison. This is for Ordinance 22S07, the Rumpf and Marshall Comprehensive Land Use Plan Amendment. So I wanted to provide reference. Here is the property outlined in green. This is Schaefer Road, Ray Corbett, and then the water tank, and then Rhine Valley to the south, just to provide some reference. The public hearing notice map, we did send out 20 public notices on December 30th, 2021. At the time of the P&Z presentation for the staff report on January 12th, we received 6 opposed to the comprehensive land use plan amendment. Here is the current comp plan exhibit, the property here outlined with the green star, but again, this is the property here. Currently, the comp plan has the area designated as mixed-use neighborhood. So the applicant is here tonight due to the current comp plan having that mixed-use neighborhood land use designation. So what that means is it is a designation that allows multifamily type townhome apartments, restaurants, retail, mixed-use development. So the applicant is requesting to amend the comprehensive land use plan in order to allow the single-family residential land use designation. So that would allow a mixture of lot sizes as well as having that open space and walkable neighborhood. So here is the proposed comp plan, again, to go from that mixed-use neighborhood to that single-family residential. Just wanted to provide some reference as well. So within the last 2 years, we have approved some comprehensive land use plans. So one of those being, and just for reference as well, here's 1518 and Lower Seguin Road. So one of those being here in blue is Saddlebrook. To the south is in orange, Carmel Ranch. And then just recently, the Sterling Grove property here in green. This is Trainer Hale. And then tonight, we're speaking on the Rumpf and Marshall, which is here outlined in yellow. So as we've seen in the last 2 years, we've seen that shift with the comprehensive land use plans in the South Schertz area, essentially in this central area between Schaefer and Trainer Hale. So staff does understand and appreciate the amendment that was done in 2013 for the South Schertz sector plan in having this area designated as rural kind of land use. However, with the recent comprehensive land use plan amendments, we have seen that shift to allow the single-family residential in this area. The proposed single-family residential designation is a less intensive use than what is currently there right now, which is that mixed-use neighborhood. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on January 12, 2022, where they made a recommendation to City Council with a vote of 7-0. Staff is here tonight to recommend approval of the comprehensive land use plan amendment from mixed-use neighborhood to single-family residential. The applicant is here for a presentation as well, Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Raymond Tarin with MTR Engineers, 12770 Cimarron Path in San Antonio, Texas. As staff mentioned, this is what we're requesting today is a revision of the comprehensive land plan from the mixed use to a single-family residential designation. As mentioned, this is a less dense use than what's currently allowed on the property. And maybe even some would argue that it would currently be allowed under the current comp plan amendment, but as requested by staff, we are coming before you today to have that designation changed specifically to a single-family use. It's about 44 acres located just off of Schaefer Road and along the extension of what would be Ray Corbett Drive, which is down along the southern portion of the tracks in here. So, yep, sure can do that. Just got to lean forward a little bit here. Apologies for that. So, and I know we're just coming before you today to request a comp plan amendment, but I think it's a good idea just to kind of show you what we are proposing with the project. So here's kind of the picture of what we are proposing. So this is a single-family residential development with 2 access points onto Schaefer Road, and then potentially what would be an extension of Ray Corbett Drive on the backside here. These are 80 by 120-foot lots. There's a total of 116 lots proposed with this development. So we've got nice cul-de-sacs, curvilinear streets, and good-sized lots, and a park area that would be a private park area. So more specifically, I don't know how to zoom in on this thing here, if I can get it here. So as mentioned, we are proposing to have 2 connections onto Schaefer Road. So that's identified here. We'd be extending essentially 2 stub-out roadways that would connect to Schaefer. And we'd have along Schaefer Road, we'd have a 15-foot roadway dedication as well as a 20-foot landscape buffer that we would be installing as part of that development. Within the development itself, we'd have a walking trails throughout. We'd have a pocket park area of just under 2 acres for the development. Some amenities would include some playscapes and other open play areas as well. We're proposing, so this is this future school tract that SCUISD owns on the backside, which is proposes an elementary school that would be in the future constructed by Schertz. And we're proposing that we would have a connection from the development along the walking trails back across and to the school tract as well. So it's just providing some connectivity between the 2 projects. Again, just kind of building that community sense. The pocket park area, we're proposing to have off-street parking back there as well. The entire development would be consistent with that concept, which is to propose that we would enhance to try to have the vehicles kept off of the roadways. So we'll have a cul-de-sac kind of in that area, which keeps that traffic that's coming over to the park area outside of the normal drive lanes. And then again, just some head-in parking areas that we can help to facilitate that as well. And we more than likely attempt to put the post delivery back in this area as well. The roadway section we would be installing or constructing would be the typical roadway section required by Schertz. So we'd be putting in the same streets that the city currently requires, no request for any changes from that. We would be also constructing a stormwater detention facility. Right now we're proposing about 2.6 acres of detention pond area. And this system would tie in, we're proposing, with a drainage system over to the storm drain system that's being constructed as part of what Saddlebrook is developing. So Saddlebrook has drainage systems that are being constructed around its perimeter that goes down to a large detention facility. With that development, this would tie into that. There's a considerable amount of drainage that comes through this area. Intercepting this upstream and then helping to convey that through the school property would also be an added benefit to the school district as well. And we are talking with them right now to try to work through some of the logistics of how this happens as far as getting the drainage conveyed through their property there. So that is something that's still in discussion. Continuing along those same lines, the other thing that we're trying to do with the school district right now is this developer is interested, this land plan doesn't reflect it currently, but we're attempting to get the extension of Ray Corbett done. So city doesn't have the right-of-way right now. It is through school property. So we've been talking with the school district as well, and the developer has expressed an interest as well in extending Ray Corbett Drive from where it currently dead ends over to serve the development as well. So that would be an extension of that roadway as a positive impact to the community with both the school and serving the residential development, and then also with the drainage extension through there, solving the drainage issues related to that project as well. So it's just more of a local type project where we'll be tying in a lot of the infrastructure, roadway, drainage, and utilities. Sewer would be extended up from Saddlebrook and would be extended up through the school property for the development's purpose and tie-in, as well as potentially for the school district to tie into as well. And we're proposing that the roadway section for Ray Corbett's extension would be the same as is currently constructed on Ray Corbett. So that is a wider roadway section, more like a collector section. At present, the developer is working with a home builder that is proposing houses conservatively $400,000 and up. They've actually told me that the number is actually closer to the upper fours. So probably closer to $475,000 to $500,000 range on these houses. So they will be higher end houses. Probably a majority of the houses will actually be in the fives, but some of them starting as low as $450,000 potentially. And I'll be around if there's any questions related to the project as well. Thank you.
Thank you. As low as, yeah. This item is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to comment on this subject matter? Anyone, any comments on this one? For the record, please state your name and address.
J.C. Herrera, I'm the owner of Shady Oaks Ranch, which parallels this property. We did send city staff a letter from my attorney, and everyone here should have been given one, and the opportunity to read that. Is that correct? Thank you. Okay, so basically what I'm here for is I've been out here 21 years. Most of the high schools around the whole entire area and half of San Antonio's come out and had their project graduations at my place. A lot of you have been to my place. We used to have the old meetings at my place. I'm still in business. I'm going to be in business for a long time. So basically, this is not a pushing match here. All I'm here is to, before you all approve this, I'm not against this project. But what I am against is I've been here. I want everybody put on notice. I want the developer to make sure that their potential clients that are buying these $500,000 houses that are backing up against my property understand that we have weddings, we have project graduations, we have music, I have a beer and wine license, I have all the licensing through the city of Schertz and the state of Texas. And the school district needs to check on us also, because when they built the other school, I had the beer and wine license first. So they had to make sure that the length was correct. So I'm just, y'all might not be thinking about that either. So I'm here to make sure that everybody understands, and you've been given notice, because I don't want the police at my door every time we have an event saying the music's too loud, you have too many people here, too many people in the parking lot, too many people on the road, when these subdivisions are going to be having 5 times the amount of traffic daily coming through here. And so that's what I'm here for. And, you know, the developer's been given the letter also, And so if they want to rearrange, in my opinion, they should take their pocket park and put it up against our place, give a buffer between us and the homes that are going to be built there. Just, you know, I've got a couple of $1 million piece of property here. Why should I lose out because everybody allowed something to encroach on my business of 21 years? And so that's the only reason for the letter. And so I just want y'all to take that in consideration, and especially the developer. Like I said, we're giving them the opportunity to redraft or whatever they're bringing to the table for you, that they work with us, because like I said, you know, everybody's been given notice. We don't want anything. There's another facility like mine, which is a little larger than mine, and developers built all around them. Well, they get called upon all the time. There's been lawsuits back and forth with them because the developers and the home builders said, oh no, those are just warehouses. And that caused a lot of static, a lot of money. You know, we shouldn't have to be, we're here to live. I live on the property also. So thank you very much for your time, and I just wanted that brought to y'all's attention.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the council regarding this subject? Okay, before I open it up to the council, council did receive a letter from the attorney, Andrea Lutz, who represents Mr. James C. Herrera, the proprietor of Shady Oaks Ranch, in regards to this subject. And we will make it part of the record. Ms. Dennis, if you make sure that the letter is made part of the record, I would appreciate it. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Oh, yes, that's right. One last time. Anybody else for the public hearing?
Yes, my name is Wayne Asherbrenner. I live at 1200 North Old Bastrop Highway, San Marcos, Texas. I happen to be participating in the sale of this property. It's my interest to the property. With the developer, and I think maybe we're skipping over this a little bit, and maybe not. Right now, the way the property is currently zoned, if this developer were to drop this contract, I would have it back under contract within 7 days and would be able to go in there and build a fairly substantial number of apartment complexes the way it's currently zoned. The developer is asking council to actually take one step back from that higher density zoning to come in there and build some estate type housing that will be a real jewel in southern Schertz as we look at everything going on. So I just would like everybody to recognize that the developer is being very conscientious about what he's proposing on this. These are 9,000 square foot lots. They exceed the maximum required, I believe, of 8,000 square foot lots throughout the rest of Schertz. So this is really a large lot neighborhood. Looks very well designed. I'm sure they would welcome any input maybe about rearranging it or trying to create a little bit of a buffer zone. So hopefully y'all can support this and we can move forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else like to address the council? Going once? Going twice? Public hearing is closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Dalla.
So first of all, let me clarify, this is a comp plan amendment, not a zoning case. The comp plan will support the zoning that will come back around. You know, and this goes back, I guess, to the fundamental right of a property owner to sell and maximize the value of their property, but subject to the reasonable rules and regulations that we as a city can apply through our zoning ordinances. And it's a real challenge at times to find a good way forward, and sometimes there is no good way forward. But I believe the intent of this development to move forward to amend the comp plan, which would be a lesser intensity use than what is currently allowed under the current comp plan, I think is consistent with what we are trying to achieve down there, in that it creates that transition zone between the higher density use as well as the other side being the rural areas. Previous decisions that we've made about Saddlebrook, Carmel Ranch are kind of along the same line, that they're tweaks of the existing line of where we have the mixed-use neighborhood, mixed-use central, and transition to single-family residential, which will eventually transition to rural. It doesn't appear to be a fundamental change in how we're allowing development to proceed down there. And knowing that this is going to come forward as a zoning case, and my understanding is that it's going to be a PDD, for my part as a council member, I'm also cognizant and aware of the potential impacts of the neighbors, and especially the adjoining business. And I would expect to see something in the PDD to show that the developer has taken significant steps to mitigate any concerns of the adjoining business based on their type of use. I really feel strongly about that, and would encourage you to make sure that you do whatever you need to do to mitigate those concerns that he has, so it does not become a problem for him continuing his business in the future.
Okay, Councilmember Whitaker.
I had a question for the staff. In looking over this, and of course reading the letter from the neighbor, my biggest concern would be the noise for large events with music and things like that. So how does that work? What regulations or bring out the big guns. Yeah, how does that?
I didn't know if you were looking at me.
So I can definitely see. So you sell some houses, and part of the problem is buyers don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what they don't know. Sales agents and buyers agents don't always educate themselves on what is going on around a development. So certainly the ball can be dropped there, and people can be uninformed. So, but where does that, if we say it's fine to put in a housing development next to an existing business that has, and I'm mostly concerned with the noise aspect, you can't create a noise barrier. So how do we address that?
Sure. So a couple things. Let me say this, and maybe let me clarify a misstatement made earlier. The subject property is not currently in the city limits. It's not zoned. We have it under a development agreement. If council chose not to annex under that development agreement, then we don't have any land use controls whatsoever in terms of what's built on that property. The adjacent property, the Shady Oaks, is in the city limits. It's zone pre, it's a non-conforming use. It is currently subject to the city's noise regulations. So if one of the neighboring property owners that's out there today called up and said, they're making too much noise, police department would go out, would investigate, and deal with it how they would deal with it. So just to be clear, if you're in the city, you have to comply with our noise regulations as is. And that could come from a neighbor today. But I think certainly your point is it would make sense for, as Councilman Dolly said, this property owner to be cognizant of the surrounding uses. Again, maybe allow some larger rear yard setbacks behind there. Again, design the layout to minimize the number of houses adjacent. And again, as you can see from the area here, we've got residential adjacent to the property right now. So I don't disagree with the owner's contention that as this area continues to develop, and you get more and more single-family homes out there, it's likely that you're going to have some more of those conflicts. But again, I would go from staff's perspective. If the developer had walked in and said, look, we'll do some commercial up here, they likely wouldn't need the comp plan amendment at all. And so from a staff perspective, it doesn't really change the issue that we're going to have, and not just here, but throughout the community, as uses change and as they turn over, we have issues. You know, the kind of common one you typically deal with is when farmers go out and spread manure on their field, the single-family homeowners go, oh my gosh, what is that? What's going on? It's part of that issue, the same way that we have more rural uses complain about neighbors coming in and traffic and things like that. So all I would say to that is I think certainly the developer has heard your comments. I think it makes sense on this one that we do some things to try to mitigate that as best possible. We don't reduce the rear yard setbacks backing up. But I also think there's validity to Mr. Herrera's concerns that, yeah, when you get more and more people out there and they have different expectations, you inherently run into some of those conflicts. And I don't think that's something that is going to go away if this case went away, as Mr. Asselbrenner said. However it's going to develop, likely we're going to continue to have those sorts of issues.
Okay, can I pin you down on one more question?
Sure.
How do you measure, so if there's a noise disturbance, how do you measure that? And
decibels, and I'm looking for Mr. Casas, who was here and apparently has left fortuitously or whatnot, but it's a noise meter. They go out and check it, and again, it's a decibel tool. Yeah, they go out with a noise meter and check it. And again, we have that at times in Schertz. I will get complaints from folks that, hey, this place is making too much noise, and go out and deal with it.
There's decibel limits.
Yeah, in the ordinance.
Okay, that's very interesting that you have a tool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I don't have that. Others have
Somebody
that.
has that,
Well-funded
yes.
police department.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes, Mr. James, can you talk to the gentleman's contention that apartments could go on there right now?
Yeah, again, so the issue, to be clear, is the current designation under the future land use plan is more intensive. It would allow apartments, would allow single family, would allow some commercial. Only reason he's in for the comp plan amendment is he just said, I just want to do the single family, and that's why he's here. The bigger issue, let me be clear, is this property, unlike Mr. Asselbrenner said, and I can't get the mouse to work, is not currently in the city limits. Now, we have it under a development agreement where we have the right to annex it. But if you chose not to annex it, then we don't have any land use controls whatsoever on the property. And so again, I think this is from a staff perspective, we think it makes more sense to annex the property, have a plan going forward, but yeah, I don't know that this action makes it any worse than it would be otherwise. Likely, we think it probably reduces some of the complaints you might get.
Okay. I find myself very conflicted because my personal opinion is that we could do a better job representing the citizens. We recently have had, within the past year, 2 other issues with the comprehensive land use plan, where one, we had 67 people opposed and it went through with a large majority. One about 7 or 8 months ago where 45 people were opposed and it just went through. And personally, I think that we were elected to represent the citizens of Schertz. Some of the nomenclature in the documentation I'm reading, the upcoming comprehensive plan would allow staff to reconcile gaps between our future plan. Okay, what are the gaps if we haven't even done it yet? What is the future plan? So that's a pretty broad statement. That's a mouthful. The residents' desire, I find it interesting, your apostrophe is in the wrong place. It should be all the residents' desire, not a single person's desire who's the landowner, and current market conditions, which we cannot escape, we never will be able to. However, the proposed comprehensive land plan amendment for the subject tracts would allow property owners the ability to have their property developed as desired now without requiring them to await the full comprehensive land plan amendment. To go back to, I've been sick, so I haven't been here in a couple of weeks. Excuse me. I beg your pardon. So that is, to me, there's some urgency with this. Like, oh, we have to do it now. The opportunity's now. We have to. Where I'm finding that I'm very conflicted with this. I don't like to pontificate from high. I like to listen to my constituents, and I like to reflect the needs and the wants and desires of most of the citizens. No, you can't make everybody happy, but we're here to represent our constituents. I'm very conflicted because I certainly think 9,000 square foot lots with nice homes on them would be infinitely preferable to condensed apartments on there. And so then I find myself in the position of which I've mentally allocated to other people, like, oh, well, you're making that decision instead of really listening or whatever. So just morally, I'm going through kind of a little dilemma right now, to be perfectly honest. I do think that there are times when it's very appropriate to amend things, although my conservative nature tells me it's better to wait and see what happens, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I think, and let me say this, these are tough cases. And Schertz is not unique to dealing with. Nearly every city across the state of Texas that's not built out is going through these issues as we change and as we grow in those conflicts. And one of the issues is there is not a right and a wrong answer. There are choices, there are implications to each, and part of it is to what degree each community tries to find that balance going forward. And I'll say this, we're going to kick off the comp plan here shortly. But I will say that is not a panacea to this, because as soon as that is approved, you will have someone walk in and say, I want to do something different. It really is a document that I think too often we talk about certain exhibits, the future land use plan map, as opposed to, frankly, we don't go back and read the entire comp plan to say, what is the vision of our community? That I would argue, our vision generally has maintained some consistency throughout its entire time. The land use plan may change. So for instance, when this property first developed back in 2002 with the future land use plan, this entire area north of Lower Seguin Road was in fact designated for single-family residential. Plans change like that. They shift, they go back and forth based on development and things like that, the timing of it. And so you're right to feel conflicted. There's not a perfect answer. It's finding a balance. And the thing I will tell you is we don't live in a static world. There are parts of the country that aren't growing. And over the course of 5 or 10 years, it stays relatively the same. We go to planning conferences, we meet people from the Northeast, Youngstown, Ohio, and they're dealing with the challenge of having half the population that they had at their peak and how they deal with it. Down this part of the country, it's growth. So you inherently have that challenge. It's a conflict. Staff would always recommend it's a balancing act. And I will say this to council's credit. My belief is that council tries to consider all those points of views and find a balanced approach going forward. And I think that's where communities tend to do well, because there's not a right or wrong answer. You're not going to have everybody walk out being entirely happy. So it's a tough one.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comment about the comprehensive land use plan. It is not going to be a panacea for all of our ills. And when you read the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, everywhere in America is looking at Texas right now. There's so many multi-million-dollar developments pouring into the state. And so we cannot help but grow, but there are definitely some growing pains.
Yeah, there are, and that's a challenge. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mr. James. Absolutely a whole lot more than a simple little yay or nay about this whole thing. I also go back to the, individual personal property rights and those folks that own that property, their ability to sell it and move on with their lives. At that point, that's where we step in and say, the buyers, is that going to be an appropriate use of the land, and whatnot. Again, this is a change to the comprehensive land use plan, and don't get me wrong, but I assumed that we were going to get this land, take it over. Annex it, thank you. A big word there that I just couldn't get out, excuse me. But I'm just going to make an assumption that we're going to annex it if, in fact, we let it develop one way or the other.
And I think that's a good point, and this is it. I think everyone is better off if the city annexes and we have some control. But folks are certainly not going to want to be annexed, and they're certainly going to fight that effort. if they feel like the city is then going to make a decision that significantly restricts the use of their land, even frankly relative to their neighbors. And so I think that's where the balance comes back in to try to get a bit more of a win-win.
And absolutely, we have to respect the existing neighbors as well, and make sure that whatever the next step is, that the developer works with the city to respect the current use of these folks that have been there for 20-some years, or in some cases, 120-some years, making all of that work. And of course, nobody wants little cookie-cutter homes next door, but at the same time, nobody wants a 400-unit apartment either. So that's that balance in there. Where are we going to go forward? But again, I'm assuming that we're going to annex it. I'm assuming that we will have a little bit more control and be able to help all of the folks living down there, not just part of them. And I'd rather we go forward with that than let it go to well, we don't control it, we don't own it, who knows what's going to happen to it.
Councilmember Hayward?
I think Councilmember Scaglioli wanted to go first.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem has privileges.
Okay, we're going to fight it out here. And she won. She let me go first. Okay, hey, my understanding of development agreements, though, is once they develop the land, they are automatically considered to be on the process of being annexed within the city. That's what my understanding of a development agreement is, but that's neither here nor there. The second thing, yeah, this is the mixed use idea. I really question the opportunity for mixed use in this general location. The only thing good about mixed use is a lot of times it's day-only operations, and yeah, but okay, an apartment is pretty much 24/7. So I like the idea of going lower density. I couldn't afford the houses, but I believe they're going to be gorgeous. How many opposed individuals did you say were opposed at the planning and development meeting?
6.
And what was primarily the opposition?
Thank you. I was gonna say I don't have the memos in front of me, but generally it was this consistency of that it's been rural for ages, and they've been neighbors with them for many years. So seeing it go from the agricultural type area that it's been to that single family, that's where that hesitation, opposition, if you will.
Yeah, I can see on the eastern side there's a couple of houses, and looks like they have a lot of land in there, so I can understand their reticence to having more residents. Yeah, I recognize the issue with encroachment, though. It seems kind of interesting that we find ourselves now in trying to protect the existing homesteads from encroachment, which is usually something that's 180 from what's normally going on. I do believe that an individual who's been on that property has a right to utilize the property to the way they've been doing it years and years and years. It's interesting. We've had conversations with landowners who used to go out in their backyard and hunt birds on their property without anybody saying anything until the houses started moving in. And then a couple of pellets land on somebody's house, and they're not out there shooting birds anymore. And I don't like civilization encroaching. I'm really hoping this is probably one of the better uses of the property that I can see. And I'm kind of optimistic that I think something can probably be worked out and to everyone's benefit. That's my take on it. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Hayward?
Yeah, I have to concur with Councilman Brown with their right to sell the property. the development agreement, we annex it in. The other thing is I want to make sure, as we talk about noise, I've lived in an area once in my husband's naval career where the base was put there before the homes got there, and people complained about the noise. So people are going to complain about noise, and they wanted the base to be closed because it was bothering their homes, but the base was already out there. So I think with the intent of if someone's buying a home, they need to look around the area, they need to go around the area, they should try to be more informative when they're buying a home. But I want to make sure that as we're doing this, the developer will work with the existing landowner to mitigate some of those phone calls, but it still may not, because there are people that their neighbors are outside and the kids are playing and they want to call the police because, oh my gosh, the kids are noisy and I can't hear my TV show. So people are going to complain just to complain, and I agree with Dr. Scaglione. I think this is the best use, and it's lower density than a mixed use, and I think this is the way to go. And again, I can't afford that house either, but I think they're nice looking.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have to agree with Councilman Dahl and Brown. We have to look at the rights and desires of the existing property owners. We certainly have to look at the adjacent property owners and make sure they're not being negatively impacted. But as Councilwoman Hayward said, you know, if I had a nickel for every time someone sends me an email complaining about planes flying from Randolph, you know, or noise from a business that was there beforehand, you know, that's just neighbors that don't understand the neighborhood that they moved into, that they built in. I do have faith in the developer. I do have faith in the staff. In the manner in which we're going forward with some of these requests in South Schertz. I do look forward to updating the comp plan. I'm not a big fan, I've said it before at a previous meeting, I'm not a big fan of piecemealing comp plan amendments and changes, particularly when we're in the process of updating the comp plan. But unfortunately, those processes taken on by the government, the city, don't always align perfectly with the current market, the needs of property owners, the desires of property owners, the ability of developers to develop properties and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm confident in the staff that can work out some kind of solution to make sure that noise is not an issue. The business in question, adjacent to it's been down there for years. I've been in Schertz for, I don't know, 20-some years now, and I have not ever recalled hearing any complaint about the property down there. And as Mr. James pointed out, you've got all the houses now on the other side of Roy Corbett Drive down there. I think we can work out a solution going forward. And again, as was pointed out by my peers up here, I think the benefit of this particular request is it's a less dense project going forward, and gives us more flexibility rather than, you know, I have to probably disagree with Councilman Brown. If you look at multifamily apartments, 44 acres down there, if that's the total property size, that's a lot more than 300 apartments. That could be bordering on 700, 800, 900 apartments. And if that's an option that is currently allowed under the current use authorizations, I don't think anybody down in that area would like to see 700, 800, 900 apartments and the associated traffic and noise from that alone in that area. I think a single-family residential, larger lots, laid out properly, I think it'll be a more of a beneficial design to the area, and we'll be able to work through these problems.
Okay, Council, any other comments? Councilmember Brown.
And once again, just to lighten it up a little bit, we've all seen it on the internet. You got the big sign. Okay, if you move here, it's got farm animals. Farm animals have smells. Farm animals have noises. Farm animals do things, you know. And we have a party every once in a while. Be aware of that. So, you know, put the big sign up, make sure that whoever the eventual resellers are very versed in that versus just trying to sell a piece of property for a quick profit. Again, respecting the current landowners and what they have out there as well.
Okay, Council, any other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 22S07?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Whitaker, second by Councilmember Hayward. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 6 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item number 6, ordinance number 22S08. And let the record reflect that it is 7:16, and Councilmember Dalla has stepped down from the dais. For full disclosure and transparency, Councilmember Dalla has filed a conflict of interest affidavit with the city secretary and will not be participating on this discussion. So let's move on. Ordinance number 22S08, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 15 acres of future land use map from estate neighborhood land use designation to mixed-use neighborhood land use designation located approximately 2,500 feet east of the intersection of Lower Seguin Road and FM 1518, also known as Bexar County Property Identification Numbers 309997 and 309999, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas, and this is our first reading. Ms. Harrison, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Dr. Brown. This is for ordinance 22S08. This is the FM 1518 Comprehensive Land Use Plan Amendment. So here is the property outlined in green, FM 1518, Crossvine, and then to the north is Lower Seguin and the intersection of 1518. The public hearing notice map here, we did send out 24 notices on December 30th, 2021. At the time of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on January 12th, we did receive 3 in favor and 8 opposed. So here is the property outlined, with the green star, having that designation of a state neighborhood. So the proposed amendment that the applicant is requesting, the current comprehensive land use plan has the property designated as a state neighborhood, so that being that half-acre minimum lot size and having that open space of about 50%. The applicant is requesting a amendment to allow mixed-use neighborhood, to allow that walkable neighborhood, to allow apartments, restaurants, retail, or office under that land use designation. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did hold a public hearing on January 12th, 2022. The Commission did provide a recommendation to the City Council with a vote of 4-3. Staff is making a recommendation to approve the Comprehensive Land Use Plan Amendment from a state neighborhood land use designation to mixed-use neighborhood land use designation. The applicant is here for a presentation as well, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Jason Arechiga. For the record, I live at 22603 Impala Bend, San Antonio, Texas. Thank you very much for having me present today. Starting with this, we had given a previous presentation on similar affordable housing measures and projects that we had done a few weeks ago and proceeded to move forward from that. I know that City Council had given some input on whether we should partner with the city or the Housing Authority. We did meet with the Housing Authority yesterday. The Housing Authority is planning on touring some of our properties, and we are in negotiations with them currently. So I just wanted to point that out. So a little bit about the actual presentation itself. Again, y'all are familiar with the location. How do I make this a little bit? Let me see if I can zoom in some. Yeah, this one right here. There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit about the NRP group. We are a full-service shop, so we are development, construction, and management. And that's something that I really want to emphasize, is that we take a lot of pride in not just developing and entitling the project, but actually building it to the standards that we say we're going to build it to, and then managing it to the standards that we say we're going to manage. Management's tough, construction's tough, development's tough, but we're here, we're local. Our headquarters is here in San Antonio, one of two headquarters, that is. The second one is here in San Antonio. I live in San Antonio. Our executive team lives in San Antonio. And at the end of this presentation's my cell phone. We expect to get phone calls as we go through the process and stay with it. So it's important with us that we are partners either with the housing authority or with the city, and partners to stay with the development. Next slide. Again, a little bit about our experience. We had talked about this last time, so I don't want to delve too far into it. But as far as affordable workforce housing, we have developed all the way from Laredo to Canadian, Texas, if you know where that is. I didn't. We have developed over 25,000 units, and we are ranked as the #2 affordable housing developer in the nation. The location itself that we're talking about is this is a land use, but of course we're going to discuss a little bit about the project since it kind of coincides with why we're asking for a land use change. It is located on 1518 northeast of Randolph Air Force Base. However, it is outside the flight lines and outside the per Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, it is outside the maximum decibel range for building the affordable housing, so it's outside the 75 decibel range. Excuse me, the 65. Project's located directly, again, closer into 1518, directly across from Crossvine. That's it. So let's get into the actual design itself. We have met with the city numerous times. We're going to be proposing, if this passes, not to be presumptuous, but if this passes, we are going to be proposing a PDD zoning. This is 8 buildings. The center one is going to be corridor style, which will have an elevator, so each unit will be able to be ADA accessible. There already will be units that are built to ADA accessibility and reserved for those who are disabled, but we can convert each and every unit to it. And something that's important that I want to point out on the unit mix here is both the distribution on who we're serving and then the actual bedroom type. On the last presentation that I had given to P&Z, I did not break down that most of these are between 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. These are intended for families. As the gentleman had said before, there is going to be quite a few kids here, and that is true. We are serving families. So we are serving families with children. And one of the things that I did want to point out as that's relevant, as we understand that there will be traffic concerns and other concerns that come with development, but we wanted to place it on 1518, not necessarily directly on Lower Seguin to take away from what could be the potential commercial and office use and retail use, but a little bit adjacent to it as sort of a serving use with it so that people can be close to it, and then also on 1518 as it expands to a 4- and 5-lane highway. Yeah, the previous development had shown, the 44 acres, but that one, yes, probably could fit even more than 700 apartments on that, but how appropriate would it be of use on 1518? We were looking at being able to handle the traffic as it expands in the future, and that's something that I wanted to note in terms of timelines too. Even if we were rezoned today, even if we started construction today, construction timelines on these developments take normally 22 months. So before the final CO is given. So it takes a while to build these and to build them with the quality that we expect. That being said, we wouldn't even expect permits. I was talking to Ray, we wouldn't expect until next year. And so that's something that I do want to point that we have to start the process now, but it is a long way coming, and we do believe that 1518 being funded and designed would not only be constructed, but more than likely finished in front of this area. We would also work with any improvements that are needed on 1518, including a deceleration, turn-in lane, whatever the case may be. Something that I wanted to point out about families, about building for families, is if you look to the right, or depending on what direction you're looking at, but the biggest picture in there is our children's activity room before the children have a chance to decorate it and do a million things with it. But what we offer resident services at no additional charge to the resident. This is something that's really important. And one of the reasons why I love working with the NRP group and our public-private partners, such as our housing authorities, because we provide computer training, the financial literacy, not more than just what's even on there, the food pantry programs for people who are coming home and haven't had time to stop by the grocery store. They can get canned fruits and veggies. It's not necessarily fresh produce, but it's something to at least provide a meal. We do English as a second language. We do a first-time home buyer program, which is really important too for people who want to get into home ownership. And then we do homework first. Again, my favorite is where the kids can come after school, and it's a separate entrance, and it's monitored too. We hire a resident service provider to be able to watch the kids, because we do know that a lot of our families are either single parents or they're families that are working till 5:30, 6 o'clock, and the kids get out of school earlier. So it's important that we provide that opportunity and that environment. It would certainly be no smaller than what you see there. In fact, we're building them bigger now because a lot of parents are taking advantage, and we've even seen a whole letter grade improvement of the students that do take advantage of that. And then over the summer, it's not quite as often, but we also do summer programs, field trips. We'll take the kids from all our San Antonio properties, of which we have almost 30, and we'll load them in a bus and go to the Capitol and do mock legislative sessions. And that's something that we were doing every year, but that we stopped during the pandemic, and I think we're going to pick it back up this year. We have every intention of doing so. And then the amenities themselves are designed also to hopefully keep those families entertained on the property itself as much as they can, and really be no different from any other luxury class apartment complex. That's a business center, health and fitness center. It's really impressive. The swimming pool, that's an example of a swimming pool at one of our affordable properties. Children's activity room, which you see, laundry facilities, and a playground. Usually multiple playgrounds, and we do shade them, by the way. It's something that's important, because otherwise y'all have been here for the summer and playgrounds are like lava. So yeah, that's, as a father of 3 kids, it's important that we do that. Some representative examples, again, working with, in fact, let me jump back just real quick, when I mentioned working with Mr. James. On the site plan itself, the last thing I want to note is we have maneuvered this thing around multiple times to have as much of a tree save as we possibly can. So if you can look at the aerial, we had buildings in the back, and we have maneuvered to save as many trees as we can back there with the detention pond. And we have also put a second entrance out there. We believe there's been some interest in a church moving in there, but regardless, we want to be good neighbors and provide secondary fire access for whoever those neighbors may be. So looking again at something that we would be thrilled if y'all would like to tour some of our relevant properties, but this is something that we mentioned in Austin just because of the kind of, we wanted to show that what we could do in terms of modern, our craftsmen, our ranch style. Again, it's really going to be up to our partner and the city, and that's why we've selected a PDD. So that there's control from staff, and that and also so that we can work with whatever we need to be able to develop what we promise. Again, also in Austin, a similar modern style, that's a fitness center there. This is in Kyle, Texas at 3700 Daisy. These are all in partnerships, except for this last one, with housing authorities around the area. So this is something probably that I'll spend the most time on the slide, and then I can move off for citizen comments and then any questions. I know the gentleman at first had said that he had felt that we may be a little disingenuous with some of the information. We modified it only in the sense that we added the Schertz, some of the Schertz municipal workers on here, but all the other information remains the same with what was shown. And what we normally show, because the simple standard for showing who we serve, who this community will truly serve, is we define, and HUD, Housing and Urban Development, defines a family of 4. And then we break it down underneath. It's the same information that we show. So it's true that a single police officer would not qualify, as a one-person, 70% area median income. But a police officer with a wife and a kid would. And right now, I will tell you that we have built the Arcadian at 1604 and I-10, and we are accepting Schertz vouchers. We have teachers living there currently right now. We have a housing authority employee. We have a variety of other employees that are municipal, working in Schertz, that are living there and that have stated, man, if we could live closer, we would. And so that's something that we want to point out, that we do have teachers living. We do have teachers living there right now at this moment. And as these rents are based on area median incomes, and I got to tell you, they are doing nothing but going up. So the area median incomes have shot up significantly over the past couple of years. They were in the high 60s. They're now projected to be 80s, and then next year maybe, I mean, when this thing is built, it may even be in the mid 80s. So we may be even serving higher incomes than that. But I guarantee you that what we can serve are teachers and those police officers with families, HEB employees, Amazon employees, and then Schertz municipal workers, FedEx workers, animals, vet technicians, medical assistants, so many different people. And those are the set-asides that we are targeting. Yes, a lot of them are set aside for those who make 60% area median income, but also 50 and 70. And so there are reasons why we do target that. There's a lot of federal laws to do so, but we do want to point out that's where we're at. Moving on. Again, at this point, I will turn it over to Ray. He can point out, and then I will conclude the presentation. But Ray can give a little bit more about the detail with the sewer water availability and compatible uses.
Thank you. So I guess first of all, it's important to note we just looked at a piece of property that was over off of Schaefer Road that would have allowed something like this to come before you already. This is a much more ideal location for this type of project. As far as infrastructure goes, as you know, 1518 is being widened. That plan has already been completed. TxDOT has plans to start that construction late 2022, sometime 2023. So that work would be coming to improve the roadway along there as well. This project would have deceleration lanes for the project entry to be able to get people safely off of 1518 and in. The primary driveway entry to the apartment complex would line up with Longleaf, which is at Crossvine. So that would be lined up as well to facilitate traffic and cross access through there as well. There would be an emergency access as well that would exit onto 1518. These are conversations we've already had with TxDOT, and that they're in agreement as far as how the project would be served. There's no issues with them at this point. We have had some conversations about the areas. I know that there is concerns about traffic that the city has expressed. We are looking at the traffic in the area already as far as the scope would be from Lower Seguin Road down. There's a small public or private school that's to the south, and that whole area in between there is what would be the analysis as far as driveways, turn lanes. Anything that this project adds to traffic at intersections, turning and those kind of things, the project would be required to improve. So if we need to come in and add a turn lane at Lower Seguin Road, that's something that would be added to the project. So there is an opportunity for city staff to come back and the city to request and get additional turn lanes and those type of improvements. There is also monies that go into a roadway impact fee that also go toward paying for roadway expansion and improvements in the Schertz area. So there are ways that this development would also be paying into those and adding to the infrastructure that the city has. As far as sanitary sewer goes, you have the Woman Hollering Sanitary Sewer Project that is in starting construction. If it hasn't already, I'm not sure. But completion in about between 12 to 15 months. And so that when that gets in place, then the sewer will be available for this project, which is well before we'd actually be putting units on the ground with people in them. And one of the things that Schertz is doing, you're extending the sanitary sewer down into this area. If this was to remain as an estate property, you don't need it. You can use septic. So, there's some thought already, I guess, there as far as this area being developed and needing that type of sewer service for that development. So part of your planning already includes the thought that maybe some of this area would be developed into something other than rural or estate tracts. Water exists already on 1518, so we have the water there already. Sewer is coming and there soon, and the roadway expansion, the plans are complete. And the studies, as far as the traffic studies, I think there was a conversation or statement earlier about reviewing traffic studies in the area. So the conversations we've already had would include bringing in the traffic study that was done for Saddlebrook, Carmel Ranch, and as well as some of the proposed development, I believe, with Crossvine and the expansion in those areas. All of those studies would be looked at together to get a regional type of picture of what traffic's doing in the area. So we're trying to be responsible with this and make sure that you're getting the right type of project with the infrastructure needed to support it.
Okay, and just a simple additional slides on the location. We can certainly go over that. The final thing that I wanted to emphasize is, again, the neighbors, and something that's important, because I do want to meet, and we are going to be offering to meet with the Crossline neighborhood as well. This is, of course, before the rezoning, because I do think that there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of one-on-one questions that we would need to answer. Who's going to be living here? But I will say one thing. Yes, we absolutely will accept vouchers. We are excited to accept the Schertz Housing Authority vouchers. But what does that mean necessarily? The Schertz Housing Authority has some stringent selection criteria, and so do we. And it's something that I had provided to Mr. James. I do want to point out that each one of our residents goes through a credit and criminal background check, that we limit the amount of people that can live in the units due to annual inspection and on the resident services. We have pet policies, violence against women policies. I would, again, be thrilled to go over it. It's not so much a land use thing, so I didn't exactly post everything that was up on here, but it's something that we do plan on going, of course, presuming we can move forward, but we do plan on meeting with the neighborhood. We do plan on further information sessions. These deals can be complicated. Yes, it's apartments. Yes, it's dense. But, and the last thing I'll mention is there is somewhat of a timing constraint to it. I know a lot of people come in and say, well, interest rates and construction and everything, but those are just outside the market. But when we do receive some of the financing that we're relying on from the federal government on this, and we do want to take advantage and bring that into the city, there is a window to close. And so there are avenues that we do have to take advantage of. Of course, we could always apply again, but there's no guarantee that we would be in the place that we're in now. And so I do ask for y'all's consideration in light of that. And again, I'll be around for any questions after comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, this item is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the City Council in reference to the subject? Mics are available. Please, come on, step up. I think, Ms. Brenda, you have a statement you'd like to read, right?
Yes, sir. I am reading a letter from the President and CEO of the Chamber, Maggie Tidrington. It says, "Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm writing to you to express the Chamber's support for the public hearing agenda, item number 6, which concerns amending the comprehensive land use plan from estate neighborhood land use to mixed-use neighborhood center use to support the building of the new workforce housing. This is a serious need for the ability for the City of Schertz to keep its workforce living within its city limits, but current pricing and lack of availability is causing that workforce to seek residency in other cities, often due to detriment and loss of that workforce from Schertz to the cities these workers end up residing in. In the fourth quarter of 2021, the median house cost in the City of Schertz was approximately $422,000, as shown in the latest demographic reports for our school district. San Antonio is $288,000, with workforce supporting the city through industries such as Cisco, Amazon, Caterpillar, as well as HEB, Walmart, and even our Air Force. The need for more housing options to support and keep our workforce within our city limits is not only a need, but should be aggressively sought out." This is Ms. Tittering saying, "I ask this council would support our businesses by supporting this amendment, which will be opening up a way to support our city's workforce. As the shortage of workers continues for all businesses across the board, the need to have a pool of hireable candidates that can live in the city that they can work in does not seem to be an unreasonable request, but one that makes good sense. Thank you for your time," and she thanked me. That was Maggie Tidrington, the Chamber CEO.
Thank you. Okay, mics available. Anybody like to step up and address the council? If you can just step up, you started speaking before you got here.
I was actually wanting to ask if it's accepted that I
donate my time to my husband?
Not during the public hearing. I do allow it during the the hearing of residents, but not during the public hearing, because then, you know, depending on the amount of individuals that want to speak, it can be very lengthy. So the time is yours.
Well, he's going to have to go first then.
Okay.
Hi, Adrian Pettis, 12015 Rock Route. I find it a little bit ironic that moments ago, the council unanimously preferred houses versus apartments. And this proposal essentially is the exact opposite. Here, NRP is asking for you to prefer a more intrusive use of the land as to what it is right now. There's some things that I did want to lay out one by one, and then I also wanted to comment on what the development team mentioned. Number one, 1518 is too narrow. TxDOT says that they don't plan to begin construction until December 2023. Further, it's not the construction is not to be completed until December 2026. I doubt that NRP is going to want to wait until December 2026 to put these apartments, which means that 1518 is going to be impossible. The traffic there is already horrendous, but it would be actually impossible if this amendment went through. It would also encourage people to cut through the crossvine to bypass the traffic, which we already have a problem of people doing. That puts our children in danger. People just whiz through that street quickly. Number two, we need additional schools to accommodate these new residents that NRP wants to put. By their own words, they're planning on having lots and lots of kids. We need to have these new schools built first. Is Corbett going to be able to accommodate all those kids? Is Rose Garden going to be able to accommodate all those additional kids? Next, what is wrong with us keeping estates or changing the estate plan to allow for single-family homes? Just up the street, the council made the decision that single-family homes would be more appropriate than apartments, but just a few blocks down the street, it appears to be the exact opposite that is being presented. There's other locations in Schertz where mixed use or affordable housing is more appropriate. There's other places where the roads can accommodate the heavy traffic. There's other places where the development would not be out of character with the area. And I do think that affordable housing would be out of character with South Schertz. Going to this slide that we saw earlier, I again think that even though this has been changed, this is misrepresentation.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to address the council?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Todd Vishen, 8926 Green Grant in Schertz. I believe the proposal to amend the comprehensive land use plan and zoning that will surely follow has been discussed tonight, and the entire presentation has been about one project rather than the plan. Is wrong because of likely effects on people. I'll talk about that, but it also may be harder to keep Randolph Air Force Base here producing pilots. The Air Force needs to bring in a new aircraft for training, but those flight operations are not compatible with high-density development as proposed here tonight. The new aircraft, the T-7, is sorely needed, but the Air Force has said it will be substantially louder than the current jet trainers. The number of yearly flights will increase from 97,000 to 114,000. This will add 5,600 nighttime flights, which we currently have 0 from Randolph. And the area affected the noise will increase from just outside the runways now to all sides of the runways and as far as south as St. Hedwig. And as Mr. Arachiga said, the proposed development is outside of the 65 decibel level now. When the new aircraft come in, it'll be inside the 80 decibel level. And the Air Force has said that noise-sensitive land uses are not recommended for areas greater than 75 decibels. What are 80 decibels? There's a lot of different things on the internet, but try going home and turning on your garbage disposal, a vacuum cleaner, or a lawnmower and having a discussion with your spouse. So simply put, the more you create a high-density area around the base, the more noise problems, and the more problems likely for military operations. So I would, first of all, like to thank Councilmember Whitaker, who provided a lot of information from the staff on this data that I provided already and questions that I have. But I have really one request is don't pass the amendment to the comprehensive land use plan because as has been previously mentioned, this is going to add high density to an area that the Air Force considers important for its training. Additionally, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-3, hardly a clear choice for you. And as was said by Ms. Harrison, 3, 4, and 8 opposed, and I think there were probably only about 12 houses in the buffer zone that got the letters. And the council approved funding in the fiscal year 20 and 21 for a full comprehensive land use plan amendment. This would, in the words, in the information that was handed out, allow the staff to reconcile the gaps between our future plans, residents' desires, and current market conditions. So why amend the plan before you know the impacts to the changes from Randolph flying operations that are planned in the future? And in fact, the staff had told Councilman Whitaker they don't have enough information to fully understand the impact yet we're proposing to change the comprehensive plan. So to me, that sounds like rushing to failure instead of the balanced approach recommended to you by Mr. James tonight. I think future base closure decisions will include factors such as encroachment. I've seen this played out before elsewhere and hope your successors don't look back at the decisions and regret changing the plan to allow higher density in the same area the Air Force says will be louder and less conducive to population density. So please do the right thing and not amend the comprehensive use plan tonight. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aubrey Dalla. I live at the current property under discussion 9120 East FM 1518 North, Schertz, Texas 78154. You have heard and will continue to hear a lot of the same statements this evening, and there was a lot of things that were said at Planning and Zoning a couple of weeks ago. People in Crossvine moved into their houses because of the view, the green space and cattle across the street from them. There was statements that apartments, especially affordable housing apartments, bring in crime, that apartment complexes are ugly and not good to look at, and that the traffic cannot support an apartment complex right now. One of the things I would like to bring up is currently this item under discussion is for land use designation, not zoning. Is there an apartment developer interested in a property? Yes, and I will not pretend otherwise. But even if we chose not to sell, if we chose to instead build the business we planned on creating on our current property, we would still need this land use designation changed. Our property is actually currently under pre-designation. It was supposed to be a temporary designation when we got annexed. We would still need the mixed use designation if we wanted to build a business as well as live on our property. We originally moved out here with dreams of building a dog training facility. Now, that kind of sort of business would not be appropriate at our property. In regards to some of the comments about the view of the cattle and how ugly apartments are, should we choose to stay, there would be no more cattle. Instead, there would be a large horse arena-like structure as well as other commercial-type buildings. The model the developer has shown today is a much, much nicer view than what would equate to a metal-roofed barn. As for the traffic, any and all development will make the traffic worse. That is how progress works. With the 15-18 expansion project starting in 2023, even if it is late 2023, things will only get worse before they get better, but they will get better. It took how long to get the stoplight at Lower Seguin in 15-18? I've lived here longer than that stoplight has been here. We are aware. I've lived here longer than Crossvine has been here. In regards to crime and the type of people who would potentially live in this potential apartment complex, on the American Planning Association's website, under Information Report number 187, it states, quote, "The objection to the sort of people who might come to live in suburban apartments is an objection that rarely gets put in writing, but it is one that obviously motivates much of the antagonism towards apartments. There is a widespread belief that persons who rent housing are necessarily less desirable than persons who own their own homes. This is, of course, absurd. Public hearings also show people tend to equate apartment buildings with tenements and to feel that all apartments are potential slums. With this notion of potential slum character, there goes the fear that apartments will be occupied by members of a minority group. In fact, fear of desegregation is one of the strongest factors contributing to objections to apartments."
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Mic's still open. Anybody?
Good evening. My name is Len Wynand. I live at 4205 Crown Oak Pass, Schertz, Texas, 78154. I guess everybody got that same zip, don't they? I am currently the chairman of the board of the Schertz Housing Authority. And the group that made their presentation earlier met with us last night at our meeting. I don't think this city has a clue. I don't think the residents of this community have a clue how truly expensive it is to live in this city. It's a wonderful place. My wife and I love it here. We raised kids here. But we also appreciate a number of the amenities like restaurants, and the city staff that support this city, and the fire department, and the police department, and all the things that go along with it. But those people have a damn hard time living here. With regards to, your comments were excellent about, the kind of people that live in apartments. We would support, we would try and help put people into this new development through the housing authority, through the voucher system that we have. The requirements that we impose on people who we place and people who live in our facility are extremely stringent. We don't want problems any more than you do at all. So we're very careful, and the team over there is very careful about who we allow and the background checks that we do. We have not come to an agreement yet with this company, but I'm confident that we will. What we're waiting on right now is to see what their requirements are. I think that they fall in line with what we expect, so I don't think that we're going to have an issue in partnering with them. I think the city, when you have a developer, who happens to be the same one, talking about $500,000 homes, and everybody thinks that's great and it's glorious, and I do too. But those people who are going to live in those homes are going to expect services, and who's going to perform those services for them? People need to be able to live here that support us. And so I'm going to encourage the city council, each and every one of you, to vote yes. I don't want to hear any dissent. Thank you.
Okay, mic's still open. Anybody else like to comment?
Maybe I'm back and clean up again. My name is Wayne Asherbrenner. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Endura Advisory Group. I live at 1200 North Old Bastrop Highway, San Marcos, Texas, and I am also involved with the sale of this property. I just would like, everybody seems to think that the comprehensive land use plan is written in stone, and Brian alluded to earlier this evening, there's flexibility. In fact, flexibility is written into the plan. About 2 years ago, I appeared in front of council. Some of you were here, most of you were not. Seeing this happening, because if we read that Southern Schertz comprehensive land use plan, it actually almost alludes to an expiration date of 10 years after it was written. The plan actively encourages for that plan to be reviewed and rewritten. Well, we're beyond that now. I had landowners down there, we saw this coming. We showed up in this chamber in droves. I filled half this chamber up to request that we look at this this comprehensive land use plan. We were, I wouldn't say ignored, but the ball was pushed down the road. Unfortunately, you are the guys who are going to have to deal with it. The delayed annexation plan has been delayed a year now from when it was supposed to go into effect first quarter of last year. That's when we should have had the comprehensive land use plan reviewed at that point, according to the land comprehensive plan that's currently in place. That council that wrote that recognized that there needed to be change. Just like anything else, you can have, the plan is set up for you to allow variances and look at how what you think might be the best use for these properties. I want to address a few misconceptions I've heard stated time and time, and it was last meeting, but as I was thinking about putting notes together for this, I felt I might encounter those same meetings. Some of the folks felt due to the lack of public transportation, this would not be an appropriate site. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not Section 8 housing. This is workforce housing. These are productive human beings doing their very best to make a living and get a good start in life. So public transportation is really not a prerequisite for having workforce housing. Staff alluded to a minute ago, it was 3 votes in favor, 8 votes against. However, of those 8 votes against, 3 of them were from the same household. So if we adjust for that, it was really a 5-3 vote. And if I'm incorrect, please feel free to correct me. The city of Schertz has made millions and millions of dollars in investment in Southern Schertz, planning for this growth. On the widening of 1518, the new $9 million fire station, $12 million Woman's Creek sewer line, $5 million to move and upgrade the city water line along 1518. $3 million for the water tower along Ray Corbett, with a 5 million gallon storage tank. I'm sorry, 3 million gallons and 5 million gallons in preparation. $600K just last council meeting to upgrade the poles, electric poles along 1518. I've got a whole lot more thoughts. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to visit with you all.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm Victoria Campos, and I reside at 12015 Rock Route. So, first of all, NRP has misrepresented who the apartments would house from the get-go. So they paint a beautiful picture tonight. Beautiful. Like even I would yeah, let's go for it. We're for it, right? I'm for it. But honestly, from what they said from the get-go till tonight, it's something different. And I don't believe a word that they say. So not only that, he said, NRP, I'm not sure who the gentleman's name is, but he stated that they would start building the later part of 2022, correct? But construction on FM 1518 is to commence December 2023. That'll take 3 years. So NRP plans for all 300 units to become restricted. The only qualifying households would be those only with one adult working, meaning if there's a boyfriend, girlfriend, only one of them could work, even if it, going based on, because I'm so fixated on what they dropped from the get-go. It was, Schertz police officer, teachers, nurses, paralegals, child, family, school, and social work, where they're not even up there. Police officer, he can't even have a wife to work or a girlfriend to work. It would just be himself and, a child. So you're telling me that, okay, so anyways, I got off track. Mixed use would increase burden on police department. We need to first hire new officers and make regular patrol part of South Schertz. We almost never have officers patrol the area now. How will they handle the sudden change? St. Hedward's, going back to the school district, schools, St. Hedward's, they are SCUISD. They're building, I just went by there. They're building up a whole bunch of homes. We are building, South Schertz is building. I don't understand how we can approve this, get this going 2022, be done by 2023, 22 months, I think he said, and then are more schools gonna go up? I haven't heard anything about more schools going up. So, anyways, that's my pitch.
Hi, good evening, Council. I'm Ashley Fairman. I'm a land use attorney in this area, and I'm here with NRP tonight. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I'll be very brief. First, there was mention of sound. I just want you all to know that that will be mitigated if necessary in the project. NRP has extensive experience building and constructing in the San Antonio community. And as you know, there are quite a few military installations in the area, and they have projects that are much closer in proximity than this will be. Certainly there are the homes that separate this project between the base and where this will be built, but just be aware that if there are any concerns with sound, that can be mitigated, and certainly will be. Also, just to correct one thing Jason said, the project will not start until 2023, so that is just a clarification. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been sitting for too long. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Annika Dalla. I currently live at the address being spoken about tonight, which is 9120 East FM 1518 North. Many of the people that are here tonight are here to tell you to vote no to amending the comprehensive land use plan of my family home to allow for more future families to live in Schertz. I am here tonight to tell you the story of our farm, as I believe it is vital for you to hear our story and understand why we are asking you to vote yes. In August of 2003, we bought our beautiful farm from Gilbert and Vernell Fye after living in a neighborhood for 10 years. We bought our farm for us to raise cattle, have our own dog agility training area in our own backyard, to get away from city life, and to give my parents a place to retire and my sister and I a home to grow up in. That was 19 years ago. Throughout these 19 years of living on the farm, we have had 3 bull cows, including our current longhorn, Lucas, and countless calves born. One time, when I was about 5 years old, I witnessed my mother holding the head of a mama cow, and my father had his arm up to his shoulders up inside the cow, trying to pull out a calf that was stuck in it and to save the mama, which I thought was the most disgusting thing ever. In addition to witnessing some disgusting things, I had to, over the years, listen to the gunshots as my father put down a cow on 3 occasions, one of which had to be put down after getting an intestinal blockage from consuming debris from used fireworks that fell onto our property after some people around us chose to ignore the fact that fireworks are illegal in the city during their New Year's Eve parties. The last loss I had to witness was the loss of one calf we named Peter, in my mother's arms, just shy of being a week old, because his mama had a disease called mastitis that prevented him from nursing, which taught me how to bottle feed which came in handy later because we wound up bottle feeding and halter breaking 2 other calves, whom I named Dublin and Ireland. They would get so excited that when they saw me with that bottle, they would knock me over. The tragedies are more offset by being able to witness the miracle of new life beginning. Watching a mama cow clean up her newborn baby, watch it stand up and walk for the first time touches your heart in ways you can't imagine. Watching calves play, yes, they do play. They chase each other and they wrestle and have provided hours of entertainment as well for us. We also had a rare event of one of our mamas giving birth to twins. In order for both twins to survive, we had to teach our mama how to count past 1. She kept forgetting that she had 2 and always was leaving one behind. We also had fun seeing an 800-pound cow go over a 6-foot-high cattle pen rail because she didn't want to get into the trailer. I never would have believed that it was possible if I had not seen it for myself. In these 19 years that my family has lived on my farm, I started a 4-H club to give our next generation kids different learning opportunities, including how to train a dog. To wrap this up real fast, this is a safety hazard for my cows and the public people. Imagine the grieving families, the potential family lives lost as they hit a 1,500-pound cow at the current speed limit of 55 miles per hour that many drivers are actually doing 60 to 65. This is why we feel that it is not safe for our cows to be in an urban setting, nor is it safe for the drivers that frequent 1518, so that it is our turn to leave, and we respectfully request you to vote yes to approve the item before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic's still open. Going once. Oh, no, not twice yet.
First of all, Council, wasn't it great to see the kids out here? That was awesome. I really appreciate what the rodeo did. It makes my heart sing. Those are our future leaders up and coming. And our oldest are 7th and 8th graders. So thank you for taking time to listen to them. My name is Karen Dalla. I live at the residence that we are speaking about at the moment, 9120 East, FM 1518 North. Council, does a farm belong in a town center? I need you to think about that. From what I've been told, that South Schertz Town Center will reach probably really close to where their property line is. Do we need cows right on a town center? I don't think so. And as Annika just stated, we've watched many times over that unfortunately a cow sometimes likes the grass greener on the other side. Just happens. We've gotten phone calls from the cities, from the residents in Crossvine saying, hey, your cows are out. Did they come and help? No, they called the police. The cows don't belong there anymore. I wanted to stay there. That was supposed to be my 3rd move. I wanted to stay there for the rest. I wanted to build my retirement business. It doesn't belong there anymore. It's time to let us go ahead, change this agreement. And we need your help to do that. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the council?
Good evening. I'm Allison Carrasco. I live at 9304 Canopy Bend in Schertz. I didn't really know where I stood as far as the rezoning of this property before I came to this meeting. This is actually the first meeting I've ever been to, but it piqued my interest because I really wanted to hear what everybody had to say. As far as rezoning it, I think it's a good idea. I like the idea because after hearing them speak about it not being appropriate for farm use anymore, although it's very pretty to look at, they're right. People drive way too fast. Nobody helps. You know, we don't have this small town mentality here and when it comes to local farmers. So I don't think affordable housing apartment community is the right choice. However, as I read online, the discussion tonight was whether or not to approve or deny or disprove, whatever the terminology is. And I'm hopeful that when y'all make y'all's decision to go forward, then we as residents of the Crossvine will have a voice in regards to what should come of this property if the zoning is changed. So that's my opinion on that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to address the council? Going once. Going twice. Public hearing is closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Brown.
Well, thank you all for quite a variety of concerns and opinions out there. It is good to hear people. Thank you for showing up to your first council meeting. Hopefully you'll come to many more in the future. Just a couple things really quick. We do work closely with the folks at JBSA. We are very, very concerned about our future with Randolph. Most of us have got a long-term relationship with them. And just to correct you a little bit, if you look at the ACUs and the noise level studies that are there, most of the Crossvine really shouldn't be there, whereas things along 15, 18 are really much more appropriate. So please do take a look at that. Yeah, I've got a copy right here, sir. But again, you know, we know that we need airplanes. We know the $11 billion impact that JBSA has on the area. Okay, we know that probably a lot of people here have either retired from or still work with the military. But I also firmly believe that we need some form of affordable housing. This is not quote-unquote affordable housing. This is the best we can do, all right? Folks, the developers are looking to build a very nice high-end product. This is not a projects where I grew up in Detroit. Projects were 43-story little 400 cubic foot or 400 square foot apartments that they crammed a bunch of people in. These are nice, affordable. Well, when I say affordable, that's still a, thank you. The affordability thing is still a question, but I do know that we need someplace less than a $450,000 starter home for everybody in the city. Okay, yeah, it's wonderful to have all these great, nice homes, and I think that they're very appropriate off of 1518, not on 1518. 1518 is a natural commercial development, and way back when they did the last land use study, they left the east side pretty much with the thought that that was going to be the commercial development side, you know, with a lot of room. That over the last 20 years, nothing moved until just recently. Now we're starting to see that growth. We're starting to see those 100-plus acre plots be put together for housing. All right, and what do you need with housing? You need some commercial in there. So we're going to have all of that. If anybody moved out to the Crossvine thinking that they were going to live out in the country, I think they made a mistake just even thinking about that. I do agree with the Schertz Housing Authority. I can't agree with you more that we need something for our employees and the folks that work around here, the services, that they could live in the community that they work in. I mean, I'm a big supporter of that. So Mr. Ashburner's comments about the city making a lot of investments for the future, the growth is coming. We're not going to stop the growth. Okay, all we want to do is we want to control, when I say control it, we want to make it as compatible as possible with our vision for the city's growth, along with the resources that we have to work with. All right, and the school district, they watch this all the time too. We don't. This panel here does not control the school district, but trust me, go to their facility page on the website. They are very, very, very in tune with the growth. If you want to know something about the growth in real estate, go to the Schertz Cibolo facility page. You'll see what's happening around the area, not just in the city of Schertz. But, you know, again, 1 acre lots, half acre lots, we're not going to see that on a 15-acre development, no matter how much, you know, people, and Mr. Ashburn, he knows that I have argued for large lots in the past. I believe that they're a wonderful thing, but people aren't building them, people aren't buying them. People are buying $400,000 homes in the Crossvine, $500,000 homes in this potential new development up there. So, you know, we have to adapt along with those other changes and be able to work with our people. This is not a, we are not approving an apartment building here tonight. We're just changing the compatible use plan. You know, and I think we should go ahead and I support changing it at this point based on everything I saw tonight.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Yeah, this has me a bit conflicted. I was around when the land use was proposed way back when they did the revamp about 10, 15 years ago. There's a couple of negatives and a couple of positives. You know, 1518 is being widened. Yep, they're working on it. And by the time they get it completed, it'll be undersized and congested. That's just the way things work based on all the, just the residential growth in the area. I think that's inevitable. That's happening a lot. Welcome to Texas. 1,000 people are moving here a day. Why? Because it's Texas. On the other hand, you know, a lot of times if you can't prove what you want to prove something else and claim it's the same thing. This thing about affordable housing for Schertz employees and employees in the area, can I give me a break? It sounds good. It sounds really good. But I doubt that's a very a reason in itself to go in with a project like this. You know, to me, subsidized housing isn't free. The residents end up paying for the subsidy. And for me, it's almost a form of taxation without representation. They don't have a say in it. It's just going to happen. Like I said, I'm conflicted. Because on the other hand, again, I know that when we drew up the land use plans, took a wide paintbrush and took a swipe along 1518. Why? Well, you know, if you make zoning really, really restrictive, you don't have to worry about a whole lot of change coming down the pike. People just look at it and say, well, I can't fight City Hall, you know. A lot of times they won't even try. But sometimes it's time for a change also. That corridor is growing. And is this the most appropriate type use of that land? Oh, I don't know. But I do know that I'm really impressed with the research that went into the type of this type of project. I can really appreciate the vision. And I think, you know, partnering with the Schertz Housing Authority to provide oversight, I think that's a definite plus if you can get it to work. So as I said, I'm a little conflicted. I see the benefits of something like this moving forward. And I'm really not prepared to stand in the way of progress. That's all I have, sir.
Councilmember Whitaker.
So, I mean, I think it's already been said, but I live in the Crossvine, so I live across from this community, or this potential development and apartment community, potentially. So first, I realize what we're talking about now is the land use plan, but the topic came up because of the potential development, so a lot of questions were raised. I follow social media. I listened to planning and zoning when it came through there. I've talked to residents in the Crossvine. I feel like as the council member, excluding the one who actually lives on the property, who cannot be part of this, I'm the closest, geographically speaking, to the residents that are most impacted by this. So I felt like it was my responsibility to make sure that I heard as much as I could from the closest people. Also to share information, because I felt like some of the things that I was hearing on social media, also at planning and zoning, maybe were inaccurate or came out of confusion. So I did, again, follow those things, took notes on those comments online, comments at planning and zoning, and I scheduled a town hall at the fire station there next to our community. We had 23 attendees from the Crossvine and Sedona neighborhood. Everyone was notified via email, so if you received the emails from the HOA through the Crossvine, you would have received the notification that there was a town hall. Also mentioned it on social media. So we had 23 people show up. I thought it was a great turnout. I appreciated those people that came. I've heard from people beyond that, emailing me, asking me for the slides, and I've taken every opportunity that I could to get feedback from anyone that I engaged with as far as their feelings. And what I focused on this time around for sure is the land use plan, because that's what we're talking about tonight. Whether, if it stays a state neighborhood, the question would be to the residents, do you want it to stay as it is? Are you comfortable with some development? I heard some people say they want development but only residential, so single family residential. Are you comfortable with retail development? Or beyond that, are you comfortable with apartments? And to be quite honest, there was feedback from every one of those categories. So we had residents that are comfortable with all of those, or comfortable with no change, comfortable with some development with single family, some retail. So I just want to clarify, because everyone that I talk to, they know that I represent them, and I do, but I represent all of the residents, and not just, if we have differing opinions, I still represent everyone, but I can only vote one way. So I am trying to do my best to get the feedback from the residents. But Councilwoman Scott had mentioned before she left about how it is our responsibility to represent the residents, and so in thinking about that, how can I best represent the residents when we're talking about development? Because who is development really benefiting? I would argue the future residents, because every one of those houses or apartments being built are, not everyone, but most likely, many of those are going to be filled with people who don't reside in Schertz right now. So if I vote for development, am I misrepresenting the current residents? But at the same time, if we always look to the current residents' requests and it comes to development, I would say most of them, especially immediately surrounding any area that's being developed, would say they'd prefer not for it to be developed. They like the open spaces, they like the trees, they like the farmland. It's beautiful to look at, and I totally agree with that. But if we as a council held that line and said no further development, if we had said that 10 years ago, there would be no Crossvine, and we wouldn't live there. If we had said that 15 years ago or 20 years ago, there may be no development south of 78. If we had said that beyond the 80s or the 70s, there would be nothing but aviation heights in the city of Schertz. So it's a difficult place to be to make a decision to develop something where the current residents would prefer not for it to be developed. But those decisions made by previous council members have allowed for those current residents to actually be residents of the city of Schertz. I see, as far as that future, our opportunity in the city of Schertz is in the southern Schertz area for development. I agree with the assumption that we had some vision there in that we were putting in infrastructure. We put in a fire station, we've got water, we've got sewer. There was obviously some vision long before I came onto city council that southern Schertz was going to be developed. And it makes sense because there is a demand. There's people moving to Texas in general and San Antonio area specifically, looking for housing, looking for jobs. And so we have an opportunity and we have land available, and we've already started that development. So what I'm looking for here is, are we developing it correctly? And 1518 is going to be a 4-lane road. We're not going to be able to time up all of our development to wait for the road to be completed before we can start other projects. I don't think that's realistic. So I do think that development along 1518 for commercial and neighborhood services is what we're talking about. That's the mixed-use neighborhood. So if we're just talking about changing the land use plan, I would like to see more stores. I can tell you that Dollar General is a very popular place in southern Schertz. It's the closest place you can go to get a tub of ice cream or a gallon of milk. I mean, you can go to the gas stations, but for more grocery items, it's there. And I probably have never shopped specifically in a Dollar General before, but I've been there many times because that's convenient, and it's nice to have, not to go 15 minutes into the HEB on 3009. So all that to say, I think that we're moving in the right direction. I think 1518 makes sense to have more commercial development. I think the land use plan amendment to mixed-use neighborhood makes sense in that location. And I think, as far as that part of this and discussing that tonight, I think it makes sense. So I would approve that.
Councilmember Hayward. Oh, Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. Well, let me touch on some of Councilwoman Whitaker's points. I agree with some of her stuff, and I disagree with one of them fundamentally. This is not about the people that don't live in Schertz yet. You don't build an apartment complex for people that don't live in here, and the concern is about the residents of Schertz. If you look around the community, we have very little options, virtually none, for affordable housing, whether that be apartment complexes or residents. I mean, small houses. Councilman Brown mentioned before that, what was the low-end value for a property in Old Schertz? $200,000?
A 980 square foot home sold today for $205,000 cash.
The reality of it is Schertz is a growing community, and folks have come here over time talking about, why don't we have a good restaurant up on 35? Why don't we have these things in Schertz? Well, when they come here, they need people to work at them. And the folks that are building, I mean, nothing against the first option that we talked about tonight. You're talking about $450,000, $500,000 homes. That's a different group of clientele compared to affordable workforce housing. And Schertz over time has sort of skewed, from my perspective, into an excessive amount of single-family homes without having a balanced community. Now, having said that, is this a good location? Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you from my tenure in Schertz and from all the meetings that I've been to since I've moved here, there's no good location. Any location that anybody proposes
It makes somebody happy and it makes somebody sad, and it becomes problematic. But at the end of the day, looking out after the community, this type of housing, I think, is desperately needed in Schertz. And it is serving the residents. From an elected official position, it is serving the residents. I have no idea who's going to move into this place, and if it's somebody from outside of Schertz, oh well. But the reality of it is we have people in this community right now that as they age, where are they moving to? As they get older and they can no longer afford their house or afford to maintain their house and would like to move to an apartment, where are they moving to? It virtually does not exist in the city of Schertz. There are some concerns. Again, this issue right now, and we have to step through them. I've said it earlier tonight, I'm not a fan of hobbling changes to the comp plan. I really wish we would get it done, but again, that's a process in itself. This is nothing more than a change to the comp plan, and anything that would have to be done after this still has to go through planning and zoning, and there have to be input from the staff on the number of units. I understand the arguments on the average monthly income, the median income, and the formulas there. Again, I would offer, I was at the housing meeting last night, and I would offer, the point that this is not definitive right now. This organization has done other properties where it's a mix of affordable housing and market rate housing. Is that the way to go? I don't know. That's an issue that has to be worked out, I think, between them and the city staff and the planning as they go forward, and the housing authority. And that's why I advocated for the housing authority to be a partner and be involved in this process. Is what we have so far perfect? No, but again, it's nothing more than a modification to the comp plan, not turning dirt. I do want to address the military operations that came up earlier. JBSA Randolph is a very important partner and asset in our community. I'm not going to throw out a number because I don't know what the number of their financial impact off the top of my head is, and I'd only be guessing. But I do have a military background, and I'm aware of what's going on at Randolph with the T7 recap program. And I'd like to read some statements here, and these are not my statements, these are statements from the Air Force. Okay? Aircraft noise levels. This is about the T7 recapitalization. Aircraft noise levels within the local communities over which training occurs would increase each year between 2023 and 2032. So noise levels are going to increase, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about a proposed apartment complex, or if you live right now down in the Crossvine, or I hear the jets flying overhead, and I live up on the north side of Schertz here in Carolina North. They have a slide in here that says the aircraft noise footprint, and that's with a 65 decibel noise level. Existing right now in the area covers 5,148 acres. That's with the existing aircraft that they're currently flying right now. Going to the T7 with various proposed actions and alternatives, and they offer 4 of them. The 65 decibel noise decibel footprint increases to 48,861 acres, or alternative 1, 37,497 acres, or alternative 2, 51,775 acres, or alternative 3, 58,065 acres. So no matter what we do, and no matter what we build, and no matter where we build it, the T7 is going to have an impact on the community. And it's going to increase the noise levels. That's a straight up fact. That's right from JBSA. In their presentation, and by the way, this is a presentation that JBSA Randolph did in November of 2021. This is current. Because the T-7 is new, the Department of the Air Force has some unknowns about the operation of the aircraft. Department of the Air Force will learn about the T-7 training scenario once it begins use at JBSA Randolph. A mitigation scenario to reduce, and the primary concern with the T-7 is it does have more powerful engines and it does have a very powerful afterburner. And that's what's generating the noise. A mitigation scenario to reduce afterburner use at takeoff from 100% to 5% has been modeled, and a comparison of contours is provided on the following slides. And if you look at their modeling of the comparison here, if they were to employ that mitigation strategy and not use afterburners as part of their takeoff, the contours in that area are virtually the same as they are now. Slight increase, there is an increase, but it's not that much difference. The only reason I bring this up is to point out the fact that we don't know what we don't know. The Air Force very well may employ the T-7 at Randolph, and they may turn around and say, well, we want to train our pilots to operate at full afterburner on takeoff. And if that's the case, everybody in South Schertz is going to have their windows rattled. And that's an absolute fact. So the question is, do we shut down the city of Schertz and do nothing until the T-7 comes on board? Because if I'm looking at it in here somewhere, the timelines are years out. I see comments in here for 2027, and I'll forward this on to the city staff if they haven't already seen it so they can take a look at it. Again, nothing that comes before city council is an easy decision. But at the end of the day, the decision for me has to come down to what's right for the city overall. From my own perspective, we do need to have affordable housing somewhere. Is this the right location? You know, again, comments were made earlier about South Schertz and the town center. The number of people that approached city council vehemently opposed to Dollar General was incredible. Yet, it seems like they're doing a banner business down there, and everybody seems to enjoy shopping down there. We heard it earlier, at the end of the day, we're serving the residents that look for affordable places to live as they age, number one. We do have to deal with our current residents and the ones that own property and what they decide to do with it. You know, people don't like the concept of an apartment complex. And we've heard that several times. I've heard that several times since I've been on city council. Earlier in the night, we had a comment that there's the potential of a church coming in. Well, I can tell you, I can show you the emails that I received, people complaining about a church that was proposed on 3009, because residents didn't want to have a church next to their house because of the traffic and the noise. I still have the emails. You know, it's a hard decision. It's not easy. I mean, but at the end of the day, we have a resident that wants to do something with their property. You know, where do we draw the line at? Is an apartment out of sync? I don't know. We talked about a town center in South Schertz. So what if this property becomes commercial? If we look at the original documents, the comments that came in from the planning and zoning, because this went out as a mixed-use development, the majority of the comments that came back in writing were, I'm opposed to this because I don't want the commercial development. I don't want the traffic, I don't want the noise, and they weren't talking about an apartment complex. They all specifically listed commercial development. So if not an apartment complex, then what happens to the property? Do we approve it to be commercial? Oh, we made the comment it's zoned residential, but nobody's stepping up to build residential. Nobody is stepping up in South Schertz to buy 150 acres or 300 acres to open up a farm. It'd be great. It'd be great to have all that open space down there. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's stepping up to say, well, here's 15 acres. You know, if we buy this land, we can just, like, keep it open for, as Councilman Scagliola said, bird hunting. People aren't doing that. And at the end of the day, property owners have a right to explore options. And I want to say it that way, it's options. They have the right to explore options for how to best use or sell their property at the end of the day. And again, I want to make sure everyone's clear. This is not approving an apartment complex. It may very well happen. But at the end of the day, it's a comp plan to allow options that still have to go through all the zoning and everything else. As the gentleman out there said earlier, and I think he did a great job of saying, I want to work with these people. He didn't come up and say I'm against it. He said, I have concerns, and you have very valid concerns. But he's willing to work through the process. And I think that's the option that we have to consider going forward with some of this stuff. We have to look at the big picture. We have to look at what's needed by the community in general. Again, is this the best location for an apartment complex? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think there is a good location anywhere in Schertz. In my dealing with the public, I have yet to encounter anybody that has said, oh yeah, sure, I don't mind that. I mean, if I was in charge of everything and I was building everything, I would turn around and I would go build an apartment complex in the middle of nothing. And then that way, when a developer comes in and puts in single-family homes, it was already there, and somebody will still complain anyway. Multifamily is a concern. Do we not have multifamily that is being proposed as part of the Crossvine? So under the Crossvine community, that is a mixed-use type development. There are areas that are planned for commercial. There are a variety of housing options already coming in the area. Garden homes, townhomes, multifamily, if I'm not mistaken. So what is being proposed is not out of character with that area. Are there challenges? Yes. We have challenges with water runoff and mitigation for drainage. We have challenges for roads. We can be optimistic and assume TxDOT will have 1518 done in time. You could be a realist and say it probably won't happen. Is 1518 going to solve the problem? No, because as things change in southern Schertz, we're going to have to look at where Seguin, we're going to have to look at Trainer Hill Road, we're going to have to look at other options, and that's why we have a master thoroughfare plan, and that's why we have roadway impact fees, so we can try to get ahead of these things. Unfortunately, on state roads, the state doesn't go out and just say, well, let's go ahead and widen 1518 to 5 lanes, just in case somebody builds something sometime. They're not going to do it for us. And we're not like San Antonio, where we have a $1 billion budget, and San Antonio can say, well, we'll just widen the road ourselves, and once we build it, they will come. Ours is a balancing act of showing that the development is coming, it has started, and then partnering with the right agencies to get it done. And we were very successful with that with 1518. 1518 is getting done because the leadership of Schertz, both in the city staff and the elected officials years back, leaned forward and put the funds into the pool that got AMPO on board and got TxDOT on board, and we ended up getting a $45, $50 million project to widen 1518. That's not being paid for by the city of Schertz, but it is on the scope and it is getting done now. Again, to me, I don't like changing the comp plan. I'm okay with considering it. I'm okay with doing it. We have some other issues that we have to talk with regards to the planning and the permitting and what is the best layout. I mean, as you saw right now, it's been a proposed idea. It's a proposed, I don't even think they know how many apartments they're putting in there yet, definitively. There's a lot of variables that have not been decided. But I do think it's a compatible use for the area, the way it's developing down there. It's going to fit in with some of the other multifamily that's coming in down there, but not to this degree. And again, as other problems come up, traffic concerns, the base and noise impact, I think we're just going to have to deal with them as best we can when they happen, once we know definitively what's happening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Hayward.
Thank you. I guess trying to figure out where to start, because the basic thing is we're dealing with whether we change this from estate, neighborhood to mixed use. And that's the first thing. So I'm going to go, I think that's the proper thing to do on 1518. I think the other thing is every time things like this come before us, it's always, and it sounds bad, but it's other people coming in trying to get counsel to tell someone they can't sell their land and how they're supposed to do their land. When someone wants to sell their land, that's their right to. That is, Texas is a property right state. You have a right to sell your land. Who they sell it to, you know, that's their choice. How it gets developed, that becomes council's choice, if it doesn't meet the requirements. But we keep getting this over and over again, and it's like, for the lack of a better word, it's sounding horrible. If you don't want someone to develop the land, get together and buy it. Then they can't develop it and they can't sell it to a developer. People can get land together, get together and buy the land to keep someone from developing. It works. Because I have a hard time telling someone they can't sell their land. And it's like you're telling me to tell someone what they can and cannot do with their land that they purchased and they bought it on and worked hard for. And for someone, when you think about the growth on 1518 and what it should be, or what we would like it to become, and some of this was done before I was ever on council. But cows don't fit in a city center or even close to a city center. My family owns cattle. You have people who hit a bull, a 2,000-pound bull. The bull doesn't survive, and sometimes the person doesn't survive. It's an issue. It's an issue when you get called in the middle of the night that your cow is out because you think you've done everything to keep your cow safe. But then you have one that wants to play Houdini, and you don't even know they're out because you've done everything you need to do. And so with the speed on 1518 and increasing it to 4 lanes, I think it's the right thing to do. Is apartments being there? Don't know. But I know we need them. When you're looking at people who are just getting out of college trying to find a place to live, some of them, depending on where they work, they can't live in Schertz. My kids can't afford to live in Schertz. You know, I'm going down this rabbit hole, but my daughter got married last year. They couldn't have afforded to live in the city of Schertz. They live in San Antonio because they couldn't afford a house here. I would have loved for my kids, my daughter and her husband, to live in my city, so I'm close by. But I have to trek it across San Antonio. I always tease them, I need an overnight bag because they live so far. But this is a tough call. The other question is, I think, as Councilman Brown said, I think everyone is thinking projects when they hear workforce. They're thinking Section 8. They're thinking all these bad people are going to live here. When you have stringent issues, and the one question I would like to ask the NPR representative, if I may. NRP, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. So the two questions I have for you. The first question I have is, how long has 3700 Darcy been up and moving and running?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And then the other question is, when you have an issue with someone who is creating a problem, what do you do with those people? Are they?
Depends on the situation. What I'll do is I'll provide you, again, the resident service criteria that'll say we have a zero tolerance policy on felonies and drugs and narcotics. And I mean, cigarettes are usually a warning. Other stuff is anything from marijuana up is a zero tolerance policy. It lays it all out specifically for the resident when they go there. So I'll provide that with you, as opposed to just, I have it on my phone too, but as opposed to just reading off of it, I would allow you to provide it. I've also, just to further reiterate, every apartment complex looks good when it's built the first year or two.
Of course.
Everything. So when we say, please come to the Arcadian, It looks great. We just built it. We did invite the Housing Authority yesterday to come look at some of our older properties that are older than 15 years old, and I'd be happy to give it to her on request of that as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, full disclosure, I did tour 3700 Darcy, and they're not cheesy-looking apartments. They have granite countertops. They have laminate floors. They look like a mini house inside, nice fixtures. So they're not cheesy by anything. And then you had like wood cabinets because they last longer than typically what we get in our $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 homes. Wood and then press board on the side.
Yeah.
So you're not building a cheesy looking apartment, because I know that's not where we're going, but that was where I wanted to. Thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
So with that said, I actually looked up 3700 Dorsey Street on the San Marcos police page. There is no crimes reported on that page from that location. So when people talk crime, we have crime in our area. Just this morning in Cibolo, there was a shooting. It was domestic, but it was a shooting. In my neighborhood, once there was a drive-by. Where I live, I never would have thought that. We always keep thinking there isn't crime in Schertz. Yeah, we've got crime. We just don't always see it, because if you're in a big neighborhood, that crime could be on the other street. It's not on your street, or it's 2 streets over, so you don't see it. We get a crime report once a month from the police department for our neighborhood through our HOA. There's some crime. It's not big like a big city like Houston, San Antonio, or Austin, but we have it. We have drugs in our city. Did a drug raid. I mean, so when we talk about crime, we're trying to make it seem like people that live in workforce housing are going to be these crime-ridden, lazy bums, where you have to have a job to live in this. The ones that I fought against several years ago, they were all Section 8 housing. Schertz doesn't need that. People don't realize that we do have some. We have apartment complexes that have about 10% Section 8. They don't have any more crime than any neighborhood. And it's like we're putting a label on people because they can't afford to live in a $475,000 house. Heck, I couldn't afford to live in one. And I just keep thinking things through as we keep going through this. And then as far as the aircraft, the T-7, I attend MAC lunches, so if anyone needs to know, that's Military Affairs lunch, committee lunch. They talked about the T-7. And what they said was that typically with the night flights, those night flights are going to be out in Seguin. They've already mapped out the flight pattern. So they're going to be in Seguin. We probably won't hear them. We'll hear them take off, or people will hear them take off and land, but they're going to be doing their training out in Seguin. They also do the JLUIS plan, so the Joint Land Use Study. They know what they can happen. They know that Schertz is a growing city. We know what typically will affect them. They're not having any issues by bringing the T-7 here. It's already, it's pretty much a done deal. And they're looking for that training. So putting apartments complex, I don't think that's going to affect it. I don't know how many they're going to end up with, because one of the ones they talked about, they only had 204 units. If this was a 600 or 700 unit apartment complex, I wouldn't tell them they can't sell their land, but I wouldn't want that, because that's not really at the moment. I know we're not discussing that. It's just about changing. The other thing is the school district. Tim Brown touched on that. They are very good with what they do. If anybody can determine how many people and how many schools and what they need for the area, the school district is pretty good with that. They have a demographer that looks at things. They're on point. They keep it on the pulse on what's going on, because they know what's needed. And if you go to their website, it will show you. Because we all like to use, oh, the schools are going to be overran. Most of the time, for the first year, they are, because school districts can't build schools based on who's coming. They have to build schools once you're here. That's a state thing. They can't build them ahead of time. So they see their problem, they fix it. They're really, really good. When I say they're good, they're good. They're probably better at determining what's coming than we are sometimes, because they really watch that because of how they have to spend their money. I just think that as we do our research and we do things, we need to think about researching it. We need to think about what we're asking. And when you come in here and you say, I don't want this, don't sell, you're telling them not to sell their land. Would you want someone to tell you not to sell your home? Because they're afraid of who's going to come live in your home when they leave. I have good neighbors. I've had some neighbors turn over. Fortunately for me, the neighbors that have turned over are good neighbors. But some people have turnovers and they're the horrible neighbors. Just in a neighborhood. And a horrible neighbor can make your life a living, you know what? So for me, it is a tough call, but knowing the idea of what South Schertz is looking for, and knowing that if we want retail and you don't want to have to drive 15, I can't promise an HEB because that's not my job. But driving 15 minutes from South Schertz to an HEB, if you don't have rooftops, the retail doesn't come in. It took a while. I live in North Schertz. I now have a CVS that just opened. And I moved here almost 11 years ago, and we got a CVS. It takes time, and it takes rooftops because they're also building further north than us. And we can't control it. People are moving to Texas 1,000 a day. If you go to the U-Haul, U-Haul will tell you that the places that people are moving, Texas is #1. They got to live somewhere. Florida's #2, Tennessee is #3, and Kentucky's #4, based on U-Haul's things, because people are moving to places where a dollar goes further. Although our houses are going up. I mean, that's the cost of things. And so you got 1,000 people, they're moving, and we're not stopping it. And we've got people that are going to want services. And when you want services, you want a barbershop, a beauty shop, or whatever. You want those things, you kind of want the people living close to where you can get those services. So they don't have to trek it, because they may decide that they don't want to open up something or be somewhere because they have to drive clear across San Antonio in the traffic, so they're just going to work there. So in order for us to get the things we want, we have to look at the people that are workforce, the people that are going to be working. Families, it could be families. It could be a single mom, but she's a single mom trying to get her life on track. She's trying to do something for her family. She's working at Amazon or Walmart, and she's working crazy hours, but she needs a place that she can afford to live. She doesn't want to drive all the way from San Antonio to work here in Schertz at Amazon or HEB or for wherever. She needs an affordable place to live. We can't, I mean, when you're talking a median home price, that's a lot. And I would suggest that some people go and if they'll let you tour, ask them to tour the locations. When we were there, the kids, I was there doing school was letting out, and the kids came in, checked in, and they were, they were kind of coming through and getting snacks. They're trying to make sure that they are good partners to the people that they're with. Don't know if they're going to even come in and do this development because of all the things that they have to go through. But that family, regardless of him being a council member, has a right to sell their property. And they need it to make their dream happen, then they need to make their dream happen. That is all.
Councilmember Whitaker.
I just wanted to have a real quick reattack, because this guy. Councilman Davis and I think we agree fully, and I think maybe I was misunderstood. I said that I don't want people to think, who have spoken to me and said we are opposed to this, to feel like they are not represented. It's a bigger picture than that, and I think the fact that every one of these council members have spent ample time discussing all of the issues is evidence to that. And I want to say how much I appreciate this council with 7 very unique individuals. I think Rosemary, her comments earlier would have been similar during this discussion, so I'm glad that she was at least here earlier to have her say in this. But I appreciate the diverse backgrounds and all the different informational pieces that have been added to this conversation, because one of us could never remember to, or have the knowledge to speak on all of these issues. So I think as a body, I just want to say I really appreciate all of the input from everyone, and that I do believe that if we support this eventual development, that it does support our community. I just want to clarify that supporting this does not mean that we are not representing our community. It's just that some people have spoken to us saying they don't support this, and it's a bigger issue than you know, a certain group of people, whoever it is that would oppose it. We have to look at all of the issues. And I forgot to mention that one of the things I talked about at the town hall, since I know we're not talking about the development tonight, but since everyone else kind of has touched on it, I have been to one of the NRP's older communities, Costa Valencia, so that's outside of Lackland. That one was built back in the 90s, maybe. It's much older. I actually was there years ago with a renter that had a Section 8 voucher, and she needed to use it, and very few places that we could find that would accept that. I didn't know any different other than this was an apartment community. I went into a lot of different apartments working with renters over the years, and to me this was like any other apartment. So it's not like I was there inspecting it knowing that, you know, 5 years later I would be working with the same developer would want to put something in Schertz. But as I recall, it was a standard apartment community. We had to go into the apartment unit itself, check it out. Looked like every other apartment community. It was clean, it was well cared for, and that's an older community. So there's, you know, plenty of older NRP communities that are available to look at to see how they're working. And one of the biggest concerns I had heard early on was the market value surrounding these communities. So I did do a little research. From my research on 5 different NRP communities, the market value of properties in the surrounding area, looking at it 2 years prior to that apartment community going in, and then 2 years after, and then 2 years after that. In all cases, market value of residential, single-family residential homes increased after the apartment community went in, except for in 2008, when the property values went down, but it was 2008 in one community, and it just happened to align with, they went in 2006 or 8, and so immediately following that, all property values went down, but then it subsequently went back up. So just to say that, you know, I've done a lot of research as far as how this particular developer has worked with putting in communities, what the effect is around that community. So we can certainly talk more about that if we get past this step and move into the zoning aspect of it. But so many different things to think about, and I just want to say I appreciate the entire council's input on this, because it's not a simple issue. And so I think it's a great group of people to work on it for the city of Schertz.
Okay, thank you. No, it is a hard and tough decision this council has to make. And I understand where the Dollar family is at. They were here during the sector plan of 2013, and I'm sure they were saying, you know, right before the crossvine started, and saying, we don't want this. They had concerns about the crossvine. And it's so ironic now that the crossvine has concerns about them selling their property. But that's... That's it. You know, all council here, every one of the council members here is in favor of workforce housing. The issue is not workforce housing, it's the location. That's what it is. It's a location. And this council really doesn't have that much of a say-so on location, because the developer is the one that picks that spot. Because I'm sure that the family here, if they came and said, we want your property because we're going to build mansions, they would have sold it anyway. The fact that it is workforce housing and the location is what the issue is. And that's why it becomes a tougher issue. Where do we put it? You know, we all know we need it. And like Councilmember Davis said, the only place to put it was there's nothing there, because no one would complain. But that developer won't put it there. That's the whole thing. And that's why it becomes a very, very difficult decision for this council to make. So with that, any other comments, council? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 22S08?
Make a motion to approve 22S08.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Brown, second by Councilmember Hayward. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 6 ayes, no objection. No, excuse me, 5 ayes, no objection. Motion passes. All right, we'll go on with our roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide us with a roll call confirmation on consent items 1, 2, and 3, and discussion items 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Consent agenda items 1 through 3. Motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Councilmember Adala. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 7-0. Item number 4, resolution number 22R16. A motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Dalla. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 7-0. Item number 5, ordinance number 22S07 on first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 6-0. Item number 6, ordinance number 22S08 on first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, the 2021 Racial Profiling Annual Report. This is information only and can be found on the council's packets as well as online on Schertz.com. With that, we'll continue with our city manager. Dr. Brown, any further comments?
No further announcements, Mayor.
Okay. Council, is there any possible updates or information requested from council? From staff? Yes, yes.
So we've talked ad nauseum about the comprehensive land use plan update. I was wondering if we could start getting maybe part of our monthly information updates on the proposed timeline for execution of that.
Yes, sir. We'll do it.
Okay. Council, any possible items you'd like to place on the future agenda? No. Announcements by council member. Mayor Pro Tem Scagliola.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Okay. Council member Davis.
Nothing other than I attended the Housing Authority meeting last night.
Council member Whitaker.
Nothing, sir.
Council member Dalla.
Nothing.
Council member Hayward.
Yes, I have something. I received my Certified Municipal Officer's pin again, 3rd year in a row. Brought my certificate as proof. It was a great event. It was in Sugar Land, Texas. And the hotel was right across the street from their city hall, and I got to see their city hall every day. It's beautiful out there. It was a great event, lots of things that I can share later with everyone. And I think there's a party on the 12th, isn't there?
No, there's no party going on the 12th.
Yeah, something about the mayor's birthday.
About the mayor's birthday? Because I wasn't invited. But
Yes, it is my birthday on the 12th of February.
We're not invited because of the quorum.
Right, it'll be the quorum. So that is all.
Okay. Council member Brown.
Not to follow that.
Mayor, can I make an announcement?
Yes.
I just have one. I know I'm not on there, but July 29th, save the date, because our firm's municipal conference that we put on for public coming right here to Schertz, Texas. So for the first time.
Hogwad?
Hogwad,
yes.
Shareholders, we would have it here at the Civic Center on the.
All right, so mark your calendars. We have the event here on the 29th.
To come.
Good.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, July 20th.
The time is 9:09. We stand adjourned.